Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to Wingman Joker, where every story comes to life. Dive into captivating tales that will thrill, inspire, and entertain. If you enjoy the journey, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to join the adventure. Chapter 371, Crimson Pearl. Horizon's media office building surroundings were jam-packed with people standing in a long line when Victor's convoy reached it, then headed directly to the underground parking lot where Arya, who woke up early as usual, was waiting for him with a few managers and the director Steven Silberberg, who were dressed formally. Today was when the public audition for the new movie series Dragon Princess, The Reckoning working title, would be held, and it was an important public event for the company's future. As soon as the cars stopped and Victor's pretty wives poured out, the executives couldn't help but bow respectfully. It was not their fault. The girls were just that pretty. "Good morning, sir," the executives greeted, but Victor just gave them a cold nod and then looked at Arya. "Why are there many people outside? Didn't I tell you to screen them and keep only 1%? He asked. He didn't want to stay all day. "Those are the 5% of those who requested to participate. We have to screen them beforehand," Arya said, making Victor a little shocked. This hadn't happened in his past lifetime. Back then Horizon Media, although famous, was never able to cause such a sensation. "It must be the wedding," Margaret, who finished parking the car, said as she helped Elise in her wheelchair. The girl still needed to act as if she had not been cured yet. "Yes, it was free publicity for the company," Arya nodded. "The reception office has been busy lately with all kinds of partnership offers." After the wedding, many of the residents of Wyron Principality became aware that the one behind Horizon's Media was some very noble bigshot. "Whatever, then let's go, I don't have all day to waste," Victor said, then quickly turned and headed towards the auditorium, followed by Lily and Lynn, who hurried wanting to take the seats beside him. Vanessa, who was in the car with the girls, looked at Mona and the twins and then walked after him. She wanted to see how her son would fare in the audition. She spotted them near the door outside waiting for his turn while striking up a conversation with some big-boobed slutty girl. "What's wrong with Victor?" Arya asked as she raised one eyebrow. Victor was in a very good mood in the morning when she left. A fish escaped, slipping right from his hands back into the ocean. It was a very big fish, Margaret replied as she casually shook hands with the managers and introduced Elise to them. Margaret was at the moment the company's vice president after all, and while Arya was responsible for the general management and the publishing division, Margaret was responsible for the creative and investment sides. "Oh, that's a first," Arya, who understood what Margaret meant, said in surprise. How could some girl escape Victor's grasp? Was this even possible? "Yeah, I bet he will go fishing again very soon to vent his anger," Margaret sighed. Ellipsis. When Victor arrived at his seat, the auditorium was already packed full with many invited guests and participants who had been here since yesterday to get a seat. Mike, with his twin wives who left the mansion early with Arya, was sitting there right behind Victor when he sat. "Do you really have to hold a public audition?" Mike asked as he looked around. "I plan to expand the company's activities and this is a good chance to fish for prospective actors. Even if we aren't chosen for this movie, I will make sure to sign them up to work for me," he explained as he began to look around while licking his lips and noticing the pretty young actresses who came here. He had an image to maintain after all. "Oh," Mike nodded, he wasn't really in the media business. Margaret came in moments later and then helped Elise to her seat on the judge's table at the front. And then sat next to her, making Mike, who was watching, squint his eyes at this young sister-in-law he got. She was blind. Why was she in the audition? Was she a judge? She had been locked up her entire life. She wanted to come out, so I brought her here, Victor, who read Mike's thoughts, said. "And she has very sensitive ears, so she is suitable to feel the actor's engagement with the role." "Oh, this is reasonable." Mike nodded. He didn't believe any of Victor's bullshit, but he appreciated the fact that he was trying to pamper the little girl. "Did you too, you know," Mike said, raising one eyebrow. "Who knows?" Victor shrugged, making Mike smirk as he watched Victor's harem take their seats. Slowly the lights of the auditorium dimmed down. Mira walked onto the stage as everyone went silent. "Thank you all for participating in this audition for the movie Dragon Princess, The Reckoning," she said. "This movie, as you all heard, will be the start of a new direction that would partially adopt the world of the video game World of Truth into the narrative," she explained as the few invited reporters began to write down what she said. "This would be the most expensive work in the history of cinema, as the entire work will be in 7 parts and it will be shot at the same time, featuring an expansive cast of 420 characters," she said proudly. The scripts had already been completed by the famous author Crimson Pearl. And it was too perfect that the CEO was moved to tears. She added, causing most of those in the audience to frown as they didn't recognize the author's name. They wondered if he was really good or if Victor was just a crybaby. Still, a few others did recognize the name. They were people of culture like Michael who just got in and couldn't believe his ears when hearing the all too familiar name. Crimson Pearl was the pen name of the most famous adult novel writer in the world. He appeared online about 5 years ago, and his stories, although didn't sell well, were considered masterpieces among certain critics, as his novels are very imaginative and descriptive. Now, first of all, I would like to welcome you all here and welcome our judges and the CEO, my husband, Victor White, who will be helping to oversee this audition, she added as Victor stood up and waved to the crowds with a depraved smile. Although Mr. White is not a part of the judges, he will have the ultimate choice, so you better not upset him. Let's introduce our 5 judges, the director Mr. Steven Silberberg, our vice president Mrs. Margaret White, our guest Mrs. Elise White, our casting director George Halo, and our one and only star John Sigma. Mira introduced the judges carefully. Many in the auditorium began to ask who Elise was, and the answer was figured out immediately. She was the CEO's wife. This caused a few to start complaining about nepotism, but those were quickly and kindly escorted out of the auditorium, which quickly became quiet again. Now, before we start, I have some good and bad news. Mira said after clearing her throat. The bad news is that we have 1284 participants today, so your chance of getting selected is very slim. She explained in a sad tone. What is the good news? A smart girl in the auditorium asked before Mira could continue. Drawing attention to herself. The good news is that if you manage to impress our CEO or our vice president, you will be offered a once-in-a-lifetime contract to be a Horizons Media star. We will not only offer you training, but also a salary and roles in suitable future works. She said, making many of those who were feeling they didn't have a chance to get a role gain some hope again. Now, let's start. The first role we will be the princess's slutty maid. I invite those who chose this role to go on stage, Mira said, then stepped down as many young actresses climbed into the set. Wait, is that? Victor exclaimed as he saw one of them, then looked at Margaret, who was looking back at him. When? He asked telepathically using his wife's connection. 2 days ago, I saw her next to a shady nightclub, hesitating to enter, so I figured that the world's future best porn star would definitely be a good candidate for this role. Oh, Victor nodded, his eyes sparkling as a certain girl who sat next to him began to pinch his hand. He ignored her and began to watch the audition. As expected, the girl got the role without anyone's help. If you can fake it in cheap porn, you can fake it anywhere. The results wouldn't be announced today though, to avoid riots. Now, thank you all, we will email you the results in 2 days. The next role is for the evil slutty twins, Mira said, making 5 pairs of twins go on stage. They included Mike's wives. Just wondering, is there a woman who is not a slut in your movie? Mike asked with a smile as he watched his nervous wives prepare for their turn. Who knows? Victor dodged the question as he watched Honey and Bonnie play the role to perfection. Although they didn't have to, they must have been training hard yesterday. He could see the black circles around their eyes. Finishing with those, Victor yawned as he watched the auditions one by one, not interfering at all. He was still detected because of losing Tulip. This girl was supposed to be his trump card. Still, it was not a total loss, as he now has an idea about the Lords. Those guys seem to be ruled by some of the same set of rules that apply to every other player, as that Lord, Wah, was not able to curse him as she intended due to insufficient authority. Although he should try to avoid them in his future plans, he must find a way to scam some of them for contingencies. For now, he had to wait and see if that Bloodlord would make a move or not. Suddenly the sound of yelling forced Victor to wake up from his contemplations and look up. On the stage, a young man was cursing at the judges because they asked him to leave without letting him continue acting the scene. It was clear that he had been rejected. You are not fit, Elise, who seemed to be the one who rejected the guy, said. Your sound is too soft for the role, she said, causing the man to suddenly jump off stage and approach her. Too soft? Fuck you, you are the soft one. Do you know who my father is? He asked angrily, as from under his shirt he took a gun fired around on the ceiling, and pointed it at Elise while the other judges ducked under the table. This included Margaret, who secretly activated a deflection talisman before she began to move. Is my sound manly enough now? The guy yelled angrily, making Elise shiver a little as many in the audience ducked down while others hurried to try to leave. The guards who wanted to approach the man froze as Elise, who who was in a wheelchair and couldn't dodge, was virtually taken hostage. How can a blind girl judge my talent? I will kill you, bitch. You better return to your job of FC king your husband's. The guy didn't continue as 2 gunshots sounded and a streak of blood began to drip from the man's now empty hand. And his crotch where a 1-inch hole appeared. Ah, you shot me. The guy shouted in disbelief as he looked to the side where Margaret, who crawled to the other side of the judge table, used her personal ruby-studded gun to shoot him. Beating even Victor, who didn't have the chance to use the gun that secretly took from his storage ring moments earlier. So what? Margaret asked as she slowly stood up, then began dusting her dress that seemed to have been damaged a little when she crawled on the ground. Earlier, fuck, it is all ruined. Do you know how much this dress cost me? I had to literally work my ass off to get Victor to buy it for me. She cursed while flailing her gun at him. It was as if ruining her dress was more important than the poor man losing his manhood. You. The man, who was fuming with anger, wanted to say something, but he collapsed to the ground in pain moments later as his brain began to process what happened. He didn't stay there for long as 2 burly chicks quickly apprehended then dragged him away. Firstly, they would heal him, and then, for the next year or 2, he would play the role of a regenerable snack for the hounds. Sorry for that, we will take a small rest for lunch now, we will continue after 15 minutes. Mira quickly announced as many people began to flee and the cleaning crew ran to the stage to clean the blood off it. That girl is good, Mike said, eyeing Margaret. He should have stolen it from Victor when he had a chance in Nuller City. Sluts like her were a rare find. I know, she is the best, Victor nodded as he put his gun away. He gave his girls a reassuring look, then started sending Kai instructions to find any news about that young man. Victor didn't believe in coincidences, and that man's actions were definitely not random. Do you have a moment? I want to have a private word with you, Mike suddenly said, looking at his watch. Let's go and grab something to eat, Victor nodded and said, then looked at Lily, who gave him a nod before she hurried toward Elise, who seemed a little shaken. As a little girl she was not really used to such situations, still during the whole ordeal, she kept her act as a brave blind girl, playing the role perfectly. Chapter 372, Father is coming. Is there a problem? Victor asked as he and Mike walked out onto the building's roof with a snack sandwich that they ordered a poor assistant to prepare. Just something. Are you alright? You seem a little different since yesterday. Are you sick or something? Mike asked. Just a bit tired, Victor said. Having a big harem is not easy. True. Anyway, Father called. Mike said. He is currently Nuller and wants to see me. Oh, so you plan to go there? Victor frowned. No, he is already on his way here. He said he also wanted to see you to get something, Mike said. Right. Victor nodded. This was about the fake diary. Thankfully it was ready, and he had a lot of time in the moon dungeon to write it to perfection. Still, it needed one final touch. How about we let him in on our little test tonight? Mike suddenly asked. Victor paused. Are you planning to tell him the truth? He asked. Yes, it would not be easy to fool him, Mike nodded. And it is not like he will insist on you taking the credit. Victor frowned then nodded. True. Fine, he said. Letting Theodore in was not a bad thing. He might help set the stage for them later. Then I will tell him to meet us at your mansion, Mike said. Finishing with Mike, Victor, who was feeling a little tipsy, left him and then slowly returned inside. He was a little unwell ever since the accident in the morning. Damn it, losing Tulip was very detrimental to his plan. If he knew that would happen he would have tried to scam that Rain guy. Victor kept thinking of what to do as he entered the restroom near the auditorium and then found an empty cubicle. Just as he sat down, he heard the sound of the restroom's door opening again and 3 people walked in. They wore high heels. What a bitch, one of them said. She was a woman, sitting like that with John Sigma as if she was something important. I know, just because she slept with the CEO, she managed to become the vice president, she is full of vice. All right, the second one said. She seemed jealous. Careful, she might hear you, the last one said, confirming Victor's guess that the 3 were women. What were they doing in the men's room? Don't worry, I am sure she is now busy kissing her lover's ass. I heard she used to work as a prostitute. My brother said he had a video about her somewhere, but he couldn't find it. Oh, really? I did hear some old man try to harass her the other day saying he was an acquaintance of her uncle. She invited him for a cup of coffee in a nearby restaurant and left with him. Damn, a slut is a slut no matter how well she dresses. A filthy gold digger. Aren't you the same? A gold digger I meant, one girl said, correcting herself. Don't compare me to her. At least I have standards. The first one yelled angrily. By the way, that crimson dress she wore, what was its brand? The third one intervened to calm her friends down. I have never seen it before, but it doesn't look cheap, and she did say she had to work her ass off to buy it. What a bitch, now she is going on about this stupid movie project. I am sure, the woman didn't continue as the restroom door opened and someone walked in. Ah, Vice. Kya, slap, slap, slap. Victor heard the sound of slapping and then the sound of 3 bodies collapsing to the floor. Bitches, do you think I didn't hear you? Margaret, who seemed angry, said. All of you are fired. Now go. Don't let me send the hounds after you. She scolded. Victor could hear the sound of 3 women running out after that the restroom door closed. You can come out now, Margaret said facing his cubicle. Just a moment, Victor said as he finished his business, then adjusted his pants and walked out. He looked at Margaret, who seemed to have changed her dress into a silky black one-piece that had a long cut along one leg and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. She looked smoking hot. You came just at the right time to hear them. Were you haunting them or something? He asked, shaking his head a little as he began to wash his hands. I was following you and just happened to hear them, she said after a sigh. Many in the company seemed to hate her and look down on her. She knew that perfectly. It was all out of jealousy. They wanted to be like her, but couldn't. Why were you following me? He turned to look at her with a frown. I just thought that since you entered the ladies' restroom you might be thinking of having some fun, she pouted. What do you mean ladies' restroom? This place is. Holy shit, Victor exclaimed as he looked around. This was the ladies' room. How the hell did he miss that earlier? I guess there is a lot on your mind, Margaret said, looking at him. By the way, why did you do that? She asked. Did what? He asked as he dried his hands. When that man threatened Elise, why didn't you shoot him? Margaret asked. I was planning to, but you beat me to him. He paused. Since when was Margaret faster than him? Exactly. I had to wait 30 seconds expecting you to act before I shot him. I thought you were testing us, but now I guess not. Today you seem to be a little slow in a sense, she said as she inspected him. Oh, one sec, Victor said, then frowned as he closed his eyes and began to appraise himself. Name: Victor von Weiss. Level: 154. Titles: Greater than Dungeon Explorer discovered a dungeon. Greater than Dungeon Conqueror X2 triggered a dungeon clear event. Greater than Savior X5 saved a human from an unavoidable death flag. Greater than Avenger killed a Stigma title holder. Greater than Master Demon Slayer killed a demon 100 times stronger than you. Greater than the enemy of all demons destroyed a demon bastion. Greater than Last Breath Warrior fought in a deadly situation in a dungeon. Greater than Hero Party Member. Defeat a boss as a part of the hero's team. Greater than Hero's Journey help a hero survive a hopeless situation. Status: Authority, Infinity, Health 100%. Stamina 100%. Mana 100%. Strength 668. Agility 531. Intelligence 791. Luck 62 plus 16. Charm 84 plus 17. Order points: 493. Class: Fate Weaver, X. Subclass: Akashic Scholar, X. Class skills: Eyes of Destiny, X plus 2. Destiny Shield, SSS plus 1. Fate Tracker, X plus 1. Fate Instinct, X plus 1. Record Vision, by 0/1. Record Search, by 0/3. Recognized Skills: Poison Resistance, SSS. Womanizer, A++. Silky Tongue, B. Face Slapping, C. Butt Slapping, C. Base Resistance, D. Sword Arts, D. Lying, D. Kissing, D. Sleeping, D. Acting, D. Gourmet, D. Pain Tolerance, E. Poetry, E. Creative Writing, E. Songwriting, E. Poison Brewing, E. Evading, E. Self-Healing, E. Dagger Arts, E. Needle Arts, E. Murder, E. Persuasion, E. Movement Arts, E. Mace Arts, E. Needle Arts, E. Dismantling, E. Castration, E. Torture, E. Martial Arts, F. Piano, F. Guitar, F. Quick Reading, F. Bleeding Resistance, F. Formations Art, F. System Skills: Bloodline Appraisal, X. Admin Appraisal, X. Admin Merchant, SSS plus 2. Master Seal, SS plus 4, 6, 8. Unlimited Disguise, SS plus 4. Contractor of Doom plus 2, S. Soul Defense, S. Shadow Shift, S. Storage Space, S. Elemental Shield, A. Poison Blood, A. Dragon Armor, A. Eidetic Memory, A. Super Enhanced Senses, A. Silent Blade, A. Fire Breath, A. Dagger Throw, B. Night Vision, D. Blood Heal, D. Wind Blade, D. Health Regeneration, E. Invisibility, E. Hard Skin, E. Flight, E. Shapeshift, E. Aura Dispel, E. Wind Vortex, E. Dispel Curse, E. Dispel Charm, E. Earthquake, E. Lie Detection, F. Enhanced Senses, F. Minor Invincibility, F. X-Ray Vision, F. Survey, F. Frost Ray, F. Lava Ray, F. Teleport, F. Telepathy, F. Electrify, F. Isolation, F. Awaken Player, F. Magic Affinity, Fire, Ice, Space, Time, Wind, Lightning, Earth, Dark, Poison. Bloodline, Chaos Dragon, by 100% Awakening. Effects. All attributes X2. Increase resistance to all diverse effect. Increase resistance to all elements. Immortality. Draconic Aura. Regeneration. Mana Heart. Super Enhance Libido. Skills. Devour, X3 tilde. Space Fracture, X27 tilde. Heavenly Fire, X. Chaos Ring, X. Chaos Breath, X. Chaos Step, SSS. Dragonification, SS. Dragon Breath, S. Dragon Claw, S. Limitless Flight, S. Limitless Dive, S. Hiding, S. Draconic Howl, A. Camouflage, A. Charm, A. Primordial Demon, by 51% Purity, UNAWAKENED. System Connections. Lily, Main Wife. Mina, CONCUBINE. Mana, CONCUBINE. Margaret, CONCUBINE. Lind, Concubine, Blood Slave. Elise, CONCUBINE. Arya, CONCUBINE. Monica, CONCUBINE. Mira, CONCUBINE. Alexis, Concubine, Blood Slave. Poe, Blood Slave. Rita, Blood Slave. Tom, Blood Slave. Daniel, Blood Slave. Fate Strength, A+. Equipment. Dragon Storage Ring, S. There was nothing wrong, wait. Victor closed his eyes and quickly entered his soul space. The Blood Slave skill gave him the ability to see through his slave's eyes, and this technique was in a way a method for his soul to enter their bodies. Holy shit. At his soul space, the damage was beyond anything he could imagine. A large part of his soul was literally shredded into pieces with only thin threads connecting them. It must have been when he felt the pain when Wawa tested Tulip's blood. That bitch secretly attacked his soul that was connected to Tulip's blood. No, this attack must have been integrated with the test skill she used. Shit, he yelled. No wonder he felt very foggy all morning. This was not a small damage, and if not for his soul defense skill and the size of his soul, he would have definitely died without knowing how. Lords are really scary. Damn it, he had been acting too brazenly lately after he got his bloodline awakened and after he got all of those X-ranked skills. He forgot how scary the world could be. What? Margaret asked as she watched Victor grab a few healing pills and then throw them in his mouth. My soul is damaged, he said, making Margaret raise one eyebrow. Victor was being too honest. We should return to the mansion to get Ruby, she said as she quickly took her phone and sent a message to Theta. I will let Monica take care of the auditions. Damn it, my father is coming tonight, he exclaimed as if he didn't hear Margaret. His mind seemed to have lost the ability to process more than one thread at a time. Shit, bad luck was hunting him, it was as if he got jinxed or. Damn, it was definitely that girl Mavis. Let's go, Victor said but was stopped by Margaret who stood in his way. What? He asked. Just a little test. It would be a shame not to take advantage of this situation, she said as she moved her hand behind her back and untied a single thread. The next moment, the black dress she was wearing slid off her body. Ah, Victor lost all reason after that. Ellipsis. What did you do to him? Lily asked as soon as she entered the CEO's office where Victor was laying on the couch with a blissful smile on his face. He was only wearing a towel around his waist. Margaret, who was wearing a bathrobe and sitting at his side, didn't have to answer as Victor replied without raising his head. My soul is damaged, he kept it short. That Void Lord? Lily asked as she hurried to his side to check on him. He smelled a lot like Margaret despite seemingly just having a shower in the office's private bathroom. It was as if she sat on his face or something. Yeah, Victor said. I already called Ruby, she should be here any second. Margaret said, earning herself a glare from Lily. And why is he like this? Lily asked. Earlier he seemed to be a little airheaded due to his soul damage, so I figured it would be dangerous to take him out like that. You saw how many girls were planning to throw themselves at him when the audition finished. So you drained him out? Lily asked. Yup, it worked, she shrugged, making Lily silently curse. Damn, that bitch must have taken advantage of him. But she was right. How are you feeling now? Lily asked as she watched him sit up with difficulty. Margaret did drain him well. I am a little better thanks to the soul healing pills I took, but it was dangerous, he said. I didn't notice anything at all. That bitch must have done something like this before. Soul severing? Lily asked. She did feel Victor was a little agitated earlier, but she thought this was because of him losing Tulip. Yes, I only read about it in the records, but I never imagined it would be this dangerous. He said. So, what should we do now? Lily asked. As I was telling Margaret, my father will be here tonight, so we will have to act accordingly. He paused, then took a blood-stained diary from his ring. Lily, can you use your time dilation skill on this? I want it to be 1,000 years old. He said. Lily frowned, then nodded as she grabbed the diary, flipped through it before she placed it on the table in front of her, and closed her eyes. Moments later Victor and Margaret watched as a transparent black orb of energy began to surround the diary that began to weather as if it was passing through the years. It all ended in 10 minutes when the office door was knocked. It is finished, Lily, who seemed a little tired, said, throwing the diary back at Victor and then going to unlock the office's door. It was Ruby and Theta who seemed to have hurried from the mansion. Ah, young master, Ruby and Theta both exclaimed as they closed their eyes with their hands when they saw Victor's semi-nude state. Come quick, he said as he put the diary away after inspecting it. I seem to have hurt my soul. Remembering your beauty, could you take a look at it? He asked, flashing the two little girls a dashing smile. He could tell that they were peeking at him through the small openings left between their fingers. Crack, the poor doorknob cracked in the back as Lily squeezed it with her hand while closing the door, but no one cared about that. Chapter 373, Bianca. And then he ordered those little girls to look at his private parts just like that. One guy looked around making no one else but his group was listening and then said it. Earlier, he was going around the company to have a look around for some star to meet when he spotted two pretty little girls walking in one of the corridors. He planned to strike up a conversation with them, but the girls quickly entered some office, and before the door closed he spotted the one and only Victor White inside, laying on a couch in an ambiguous pose. Before the door was closed, he heard what Victor said to the two girls. Damn that filthy pervert, really? Michael, who was waiting for his turn for the audition, asked in shock. What a pervert, he exclaimed. Damn, I didn't expect the lives of those in the media to be so depraved. Another guy said, maybe I should reconsider auditioning for this damn movie, he added righteously. I agree, this place is too immoral. In that office earlier, there were two other girls that I couldn't clearly see, they seemed to have just finished doing it though. The first guy said, are you telling the truth? Michael asked, feeling a little jealous of his brother-in-law. Yeah, Victor was only wearing a bath towel after all. I swear on my mother's grave. The guy said, wait, wasn't she your mother? The one who was encouraging you outside? The big-boobed girl who was standing with them asked while raising one eyebrow. She was the reason they were all acting full of justice. Ah no, that was my sponsor. Every young talented actor like myself needs one. The man framed it nicely. We are talking about Victor White now. He quickly demanded her to drop the subject of his sugar mama. Fine, can you remember what the girls looked like? The girl asked. We can ask about their identity later, she clarified. Ah, one had a ponytail, while the other had a twin tails haircut. They were very pretty and cute, but I had never seen them before. The guy said. Still, one of them moved like a prostitute. Oh, well, it is nothing strange. We have all heard the rumors about Victor White's wild preferences. The girl said, shrugging. Be it old or young, there is nothing money can't buy. Even you, Michelle asked as he secretly checked her boobs for the 37th time today. Although they were not comparable to Gloria's, they were not bad. Interested? She asked in a flirty tone. She had long noticed his peaks. Yes. The three men who were standing next to her all nodded. You can't afford me, she said then chuckled. Michael really wanted to ask her for a quote, but he didn't dare to. This girl might appear all nice and friendly, but he saw her bash a man earlier who tried to molest her. Can that Victor afford you? One other guy asked before Michael could. I wonder, she said in a sad tone while hugging her boobs, making them pop out of the neck of the V-neck sweater she was wearing. But since he got his hands on even the all-mysterious Crimson Pearl, would I be able to resist him if he came after me? She sighed as she sexily bit her lip, making the three young men swallow hard. You are different, Michael said. If you say so, she giggled. By the way, do you have an idea who that Crimson Pearl is? I really want his autograph. Sadly no, the three guys shook their heads. Still, one of them had a different spark in his eyes. It was Victor's brother-in-law, Michael. You know something, don't you? The girl asked, poking Michael's muscular arm with her delicate finger. Ah, not really, but I know someone who knows, he said, hesitating a bit. He feared that if he revealed his relationship with Victor, the girl might decide to use him to get to his big fish brother-in-law before abandoning him. Wow, really? Can you get me an autograph? She asked with sparkling eyes. I will try my best. Michael replied. Wow, thanks, I am a huge fan. She said, acting a little excited. Really? The three guys asked. Crimson Pearl was not a conventional writer after all. It is true, she said. His novels have technically saved my life when I was most desperate. I was looking forward to meeting him when he said he was going to reveal his identity to raise some funds, then all of a sudden he changed his mind a few months ago, deciding to keep his identity a secret. He even stopped publishing frequently, she complained. True, Michael nodded. In the past, Crimson Pearl used to finish publishing an exciting full novel every month, but for the last 3 months, he only managed to publish 20 chapters or so. It was as if he was very busy. Michael now knew why. It was because Crimson Pearl was busy working on this new movie. Well, if you manage to know more about him, I would be really thankful, the girl said, sighing. How thankful? One guy asked. It was an appropriate question, but the guys needed to know. Well, how about? The girl bit her lip flirtingly and began to speak when someone called from the back. Those who are auditioning for the role of the pimp, please step forward. Mira announced. Quickly now. Ah, it is my call. Michael said. Me too, the other two guys replied as they turned to go on stage. Not forgetting to give the big-boobed girl one last look. Wish me luck, Bianca. Michael told her, not expecting a reply, but in the next moment she stepped forward and gave him a hug and kissed his cheek. Good luck, call me later if you wanna party. Bianca whispered in his ear before chuckling as she let go of him. Giving him and the other guys one last look, she winked, turned, and left, leaving poor Michael in shock as the two other guys cried after her for a good luck kiss too, but she ignored them. Ellipsis. Tom had to tell the truth. He really liked life in the Celestial sect, but he was literally about to explode. Being one of Caspian's harem, he was given an entire courtyard to live in by himself where he could train his martial arts surrounded by pretty maids that he couldn't touch. Damn it, he cursed as he secretly made his way through a hidden mountain path. His time here was filled with meditation and training. During this period he was only allowed to meet Caspian 3 times, and it was under supervision, fearing the curse might relapse. Thankfully, Tom didn't feel anything when he met Caspian. On the contrary, it was Caspian who began to breathe heavily every time their eyes met, forcing the elders to end the meeting. According to the whimsical system, Caspian was like this because his soul was not the original owner of the body he occupied, and this made him very susceptible to curses that controlled primal desires. Although the curse was dispelled by the sect's elders, the body that lacked the nourishment of its original soul couldn't easily forget the sensual pleasure it experienced that day. Thankfully, his suffering was not in vain. The system unlocked some new features for him as compensation. Now he had access to the system store in the system's storage space. This not only allowed him to store many of the treasures he stole, but also to purchase an encrypted satellite phone to call and assure his loved ones of his safety. He also got some very high-quality toys to relieve his manly needs. So, with too much time on his hands, and nothing to do, Tom began to focus on training his skills when he was not out exploring the heavenly sect and investigating Caspian under the system's instruction. According to the information he collected secretly, Caspian seemed to own a small hut on the edge of the sect. That place was off limits as Caspian was supposedly raising some rare flowers there. Those flowers would wonder if anyone who didn't have the right kind of energy got near. According to the reports, Caspian would go there to meditate every night at sunset and leave in the morning. So Tom was instructed by the system to go there today, as there was currently a contest being conducted in the main courtyard to choose the participants of the Jade Grand Tournament that would be held in a couple of months. Nova, Tom being Caspian's wife, didn't have to participate, but this was not true for others, including the guards who yearned for a promotion. This made it more convenient for Tom to sneak to the hut while the security was minimal. System, we will enter the forbidden zone any time now, Tom said. Confirmed. System will give you the ultimate disguise for 3 hours. This will cost you 399 system coins. If you take an additional hour right now, it will be 449. Damn, greedy system, Tom cursed silently. The system prices are always over the top. He can get those system coins by completing missions, or by selling gems and coins. Watch your language. The system prices are always fair and well calculated. Whatever, let's do it. 4 hours, he said. He had a lot of money after secretly raiding a few of the elders, halls with the system's skills, and from experience, he could tell that the system's offers were always worth it. The only complaint he had was that the system was really too whimsical. Sometimes it would flatly refuse his requests while others, it would stop responding completely. He discovered that in order to assure the whimsical system's help he needed to either set his plan beforehand or be in some really shitty situation. It was like getting an appointment with a dentist. Feeling the disguise effect engulf him, Tom became more brazen, not caring to walk like a lady as he put on the levitation necklace and then hurriedly broke into the forbidden zone by flying over the high fence surrounding it. Inside, it was really just a large field of flowers with a small wood hut in its center. It was really a picturesque scene. Without stepping onto the flowers, Tom floated until he reached the hut, where the system teleported him inside free of charge. The hut was empty. There was nothing inside but an old chair. Search underground. A random whimsical tip. All the powers in the world have numerous underground dungeons to keep their shit, so always search for one when you are out raiding. The system said. Tom nodded and began feeling around the wooden boards that covered the hut's floor, where he quickly found a hidden trapdoor. Tom didn't try to open it, but once again used the system's shadow shifting skill to pass through it into the long spiraling stairway going down. Tom didn't hesitate as he started to descend, and after 5 minutes he reached the bottom where in front of him a long stone dungeon lit with strange blue-colored torches appeared. Explore it. You are hidden, so no one can see you. The system ordered. Tom nodded and began to slowly look around. The dungeon was made of a long corridor with filthy cells on both sides. The first 5 were empty and covered with a layer of dried blood. The 6th were not. As Tom approached it, he could see that inside of it there was a group of 7 young girls huddled to one side wearing filthy rags as clothes. They must have been here for a long time. He frowned and began to look at the other similar cells. The closer he got to the end of the corridor, the more haggard and hurt the occupants of the cells became. Reaching the end of the corridor, he couldn't even look at the 2 girls who were almost disfigured and missing an arm and a leg in the last cell. What is this place? Tom asked with a frown. Caspian's feeding room. As a high-ranking demon, he needs a lot of demonic soul energy to use his skills and power to fool the world. But the human body he is occupying can't generate such energy. The best way to get this energy is to harvest it from suitable targets. Apparently, he seems to like eating them after exhausting them. Do you want to learn this technique? You will become a demon king, but it will cost you your humanity, and you will be addicted to little girls' flesh. You will have to eat one every day to keep your power. Limited offer. Now for only 7,999,999,999,999 system coins. No thanks, Tom, who felt that the system was trolling him, said. Can you tell me why all those demons like girls? Why not guys? He felt like asking. Virgin girls has a lot of yin energy that can be easily transformed into demonic energy. Oh, can we save the girls? He asked. This might put you in grave danger. I don't care, Tom said. He couldn't leave those girls like that. Calculating. The system will need some time to calculate the safest method and prepare a suitable artifact for that. Keep exploring for now. Tom nodded as he reached the wooden door at the end. He took a deep breath and then used the shadow to shift past it. Inside it was a small corridor that had 3 rooms. The left one seemed to be a kitchen that had a dissecting table in the middle. Thankfully it was empty. The second room was empty except for a large red jade slab in its center. After spending some time in the sect, Tom knew that this one was extracted from a dungeon and was meant for meditation. Can I take this? Tom asked. After learning about meditation, he realized why those sects were so powerful. The strange skills and methods they used allowed them to gain attribute points without having to risk their lives in the dungeon, as meditating on a high-quality jade like this would allow him to get about 1 to 2 attribute points every week. Of course. Just be careful, let me show you the slab's appraisal. Blood meditation slab, S. Meditate to convert the blood you just drank to attribute points. Results vary depending on the blood. Must use the blood sutra. The system replied. Ah, I guess I would just sell it, Tom said as he put the slab in his storage space, before giving the room one final look and heading to the last one. It was a vault of some sort. Inside of it, there were many jars filled with blood and body parts floating in yellowish liquids. What is this? Tom asked. The pickling room. Collect those for the system for 998 system coins. The paid amount will be 988 after the income tax is deducted. Despite his disgust, Tom nodded as he collected all the jars, then as if thinking of something he began to search for a trapdoor. You should hurry. Hidden mission initiated. Mission. Find the secret behind the wall. Reward. 5,000 system coins. The system that was about to scold Tom to hurry up was interrupted and had to correct itself when behind one of the empty shelves, a hidden switch was found. Tom hesitated for a second then quickly pressed it, opening the panel behind the shelves. It was just a wall, with a small vault in its center. It was locked. Use the shadow shifting to pass your hand through the door and grab whatever is inside. The system advises you to use the newly acquired Corpse Glove D artifact to protect your delicate hand just in case. It has good resistance for curses. It is available now for 7.499 system coins. Tom frowned, then as if by intuition he accepted. I will buy it, he said, getting a golden glove to appear in his hand as he watched his system coins decrease in the system panel. Wearing the glove, he activated the shadow skill and pushed his hand inside. Bang! His hand didn't enter but hit the solid vault door. Why is it not working? Tom asked, feeling frustrated. This had never happened before. Wait. System analyzing. The vault has some kind of array to freeze space. The system advises you to try to store it whole in your storage space. You can retrieve it and try to open it later. Tom nodded, holding the vault by its sides with his fingernails, then tried to pull on it while activating his storage space. From a moment there he could see a message that read, insufficient authority, but moments later another message took its place. Authority override by the whimsical system. The vault disappeared, entering the storage space. What was that? Tom asked. Was what? The system asked. The messages. The whimsical system had to use its authority to help you take the vault. Consider it a freebie. Oh, Tom nodded as he checked the vault's now empty location and then gave the 3 rooms one last look and then left them. Do you have a way to take the girls out? He asked. Yes. The only safe method had been identified. There is 3 conditions. The girls must not know your identity to avoid danger in case they are captured again. This operation must be done in 30 minutes. The girls will be healed and automatically teleported to a safe location on another continent. Where exactly? Tom asked. It is a girls-only sect called the Ice Sect. Even if Caspian used some demonic way to locate them, he will not be able to take them back. They will be safe. Warning. The system will now change your shape and you must claim that you were sent by the Emperor to save them. The Emperor? Tom asked. Just a pseudonym to fool your enemies. The girl will be questioned at the Ice Sect after all. I understand, Tom said as a strange shabby-looking cauldron appeared in front of him. Use this to teleport the girls out. A teleportation device. Can I use it too? Tom asked. He really wanted to leave this place. If you leave now, your mission will be considered a failure. Caspian will be able to locate Nova Who is now hiding until the tournament when she will use the chaos to find her way here. You will lose your ability as a man. Cancel mission. Yes, no, Tom said as he felt the disguise around him lift. The girls who were lying in the cells all looked up at him with fear in their eyes. Don't worry, I am here to save you, he said. Ah, the Emperor sent me here to save you. He quickly corrected himself. Chapter 374, There was no sleeping. So, did I get the role? Michael asked shamelessly. He had finished his audition and then went to look for Bianca. Too bad he couldn't find her and had to go back and find his mother, who was at the moment sitting at the CEO's office with his sisters and 5 of Victor's wives, Mira, Lynn, Monica, Margaret, and Elise. Michael, who, except for Margaret, was meeting them officially for the first time, had to confess, he was very jealous. Super jealous. He wanted a harem like this too. No, not quite like this. His harem must have big breasts. I can't tell you the results yet, we need to check all the recordings again before we make our final judgment, Mira said. Still, you have not been eliminated yet, and even if you didn't get the pimp role, there are 3 minor roles that would suit you, she explained. Was he really any good? Mona asked in surprise. For a pimp, he was very pretty good, Monica, who took Margaret's position as a judge after the break, said. Hearing her, Michael was feeling a little conflicted about being called good for a pimp, but being good at something is never a bad thing, right? Didn't you watch me? He turned and asked his mother. Sorry, we got a little hungry, so Mina took us to this 3 Chilling Stars restaurant nearby to try it out. We had to try everything on their menu. So, sorry, Vanessa apologized to her son while touching her slightly bloated belly. She was not sorry at all. Even Mona blushed a little. She didn't want to confess it, but that restaurant was really good. If it weren't for her super rich sisters reserving the entire place by a phone call, she might not have been able to eat there or even reserve a spot on their waiting list that extended for 17 months. Oh, Michael sighed. His mother seemed to have been completely bought up by her son-in-law's riches. Seeing how she was chatting lively with Victor's wife, she didn't seem to be minding this harem situation anymore. Where is Victor anyway? He asked. He is, before Margaret could say it, a side door opened and Victor, who was dressed casually, walked out with a veiled girl and 2 young girls. The ones that Guy described earlier. Oh, you guys are already here, did the auditions finish? Victor asked casually as he headed to his desk. Yes, how were the girls? Margaret asked. They were a little shocked, but not bad overall, they will get used to it, Victor said, making Mona clench on her teeth. You managed to finish, processing them? Margaret asked again, causing Mira, who was sitting at her side, to start pinching her from behind. Couldn't the girl stop phrasing things so ambiguous? Mona had already begun to look at Victor with disgust. Not quite, we couldn't completely finish because there was a lot to do, we will continue after our hard-working Ruby here rests a bit. He added, pointing to the twin-tailed girl who was collapsing on a couch. She seemed a little out of breath. Michael, who was feeling very jealous while imagining what was happening in that room, couldn't help but swallow his saliva, looking at Ruby and then at Victor. Wasn't she too young? This was not his business, he reminded himself, turning to look at his mother, wanting to see her reaction. There was none. She only uttered a sigh, but that's it. She had already been completely bought. Bianca was right, money was scary. Michael couldn't help sighing as he watched Victor take his seat behind the desk. Like Mona, he didn't like Victor a lot either. Victor felt a little too arrogant for him and made him feel too inferior. He suddenly noticed someone inspecting him. She was one of the little girls who was with Victor. After giving him an inspector's look, she began to whisper something in Victor's ear as she rubbed the jade bangle on her hand. I already noticed. It is okay, don't worry, Victor said, rubbing the girl's head while tapping the table 5 times with his fingers in a certain pattern, making Margaret, who was sitting on the couch opposing Michael, casually take a bottle of air freshener and casually spray it on Michael, making him close his eyes in annoyance. Sorry, someone broke some wind, she told Vanessa politely in a low voice, making the latter look with disgust at her stupid son, who wanted to defend himself but decided not to, knowing that no one would believe him anyway. Did you want something from me? Victor finally asked, looking at Michael and saving him from the embarrassing situation. What? Can't I come to see my brother-in-law without needing something? Michael asked with a dry smile as Mona looked at him with disgust. She knew her brother better than anyone, and he wouldn't be here if he didn't want something. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just heard you ask about me when I entered the room. Victor explained. I figured you might want something, he added. Oh, well, I just wanted to ask you about Crimson Pearl, Michael asked directly, not noticing the looks Victor and Margaret were shooting at each other. Are you a fan or something? Margaret asked as she inspected Michael from head to toe. Casually pointed her phone in his direction and asked. Yes, a super fan, he confessed. Really? Margaret asked as she bent over the coffee table between them to look at him and pushed her phone on his chest. Yes. Do you know his identity? He asked as Margaret slowly lowered her phone and then retracted. I never truly met him. Margaret shook her head. Victor is the one who communicates with him usually. They are best buddies, she added as she retracted her phone, looked at it, then began texting. Really? Michael turned and asked Victor. Yes, we met by chance during a friend's birthday, and hit it off directly as we had many things in common. Victor shrugged. It was later that I found out about Crimson Pearl's talent, when we ended up spending one summer night in the same bed. It was a very eventful and special night. In the morning we began brainstorming for some projects to do together and the idea for the movie was born. Victor explained as a wretched smile appeared on his face. In bed? Mona was the one who asked as her face turned red. Yes, Victor said. Did you too? You know what? Mona asked. For some strange reason, her voice felt a little strange when she asked. No what? Victor asked innocently as if he didn't get what she was talking about. Quote. Did you sleep together? Mona asked after some hesitation, not knowing how to frame it. Not really, there was no sleeping, back then we didn't close our eyes all night, Victor said after some thinking, deciding to play with her a little. Quote. She meant to ask if the two of you FCKED each other. Michael, who woke up from his shock, had to correct his stupid sister despite already figuring out the answer. Neither he nor his sister noticed that the way they were talking was a little too unreserved. Of course not, Victor scolded, surprising everybody. Not that night anyway, he added. Making Vanessa, who almost sighed in relief, hiccup. Then you did it eventually? Mona asked as if she was expecting something, making Vanessa look at her daughter strangely. Why was her reserved daughter asking about those things? Yes, but only I did the FC King part, he explained, making his wives who were listening almost giggle out loud as Victor looked at Mona to see her reaction. Unlike Vanessa and Michael, who couldn't help weirdly looking at him, Mona's face became more red with the blush reaching her ears as she began to secretly inspect Victor, and some weird thoughts began to float in her mind. Okay, can I meet him? Michael finally asked, deciding not to delve deeper into Victor's weird hobbies. This conversation had already become very awkward. You want to sleep with Crimson Pearl too? Victor asked, seemingly a little offended. No, not at all. I only wanted to ask him some questions and get his autograph. Michael quickly clarified. Well, he is usually very busy, but I can ask him, I guess, he would never refuse me, I am his sugar daddy after all. Victor said casually, giving Margaret a wink as he took his phone and sent a message. The response came pretty quickly as if the other side was waiting for him. What did he say? Michael asked as he watched Victor put down his phone. He will be in Vane City in 2 days, he doesn't mind meeting you. Victor said, I already sent him your phone number, he will contact you when it is time, that guy always likes to be secretive for some reason. Thanks, Michael said as his eyes began to look around nervously. Can I bring a friend? He finally asked. Who? Victor asked, seemingly worried. It's not like that, she is a girl that I met today and I am planning to bang her, you know, she is also a huge fan. Michael said, stressing the word huge, and making his mother look at him with disgust for the 3rd time today. Did he have to state it like this? If it is for that reason, I am okay with it. Victor said casually, smiling for the first time as he shot Michael a knowing smile. Thanks, brother-in-law. Michael said, maybe Victor was not that bad after all. Did you find out who pushed him? Victor asked as soon as he got into the car with Margaret, Lily, and Elise. The other girls were divided among the other cars. It was a girl calling herself Bianca Young. She seemed to have accidentally met Michael outside the venue and they stuck together after all, Lily said as she checked her phone. They stayed together until Michael began his audition according to the surveillance tape. She seemed to be really interested in Crimson Pearl. Quote, I see, what was she auditioning for? A minor player role of a maid. She didn't get it, Lily replied. Her background? Victor asked. According to the audition application she filled out, she is an actress from Top Tree City, she is an orphan who graduated from the art school there, Lily said. According to Kai, her data matches the family database, still. Too clean? He asked. Yes, Lily nodded, there are too many empty slots in her history. She is too clean for someone who could easily sneak in and plant a high-tech listening device so casually. A listening device? Elise asked in surprise. She noticed that Victor and Margaret were sending each other all kinds of signals, but as she was playing being blind, she couldn't really investigate freely. Yes, our conversation in the office was getting recorded, Victor said. If it were not for Theta's bracelet, we wouldn't have noticed, he added. Did you analyze that device? He asked Margaret. I couldn't really get to look at it, as it was some kind of a sticker stuck into Michael's back pocket. That girl must have put it in when she hugged him. Margaret replied. Still, I did a full scan, and the scanner in my phone was barely able to pick it up when I almost stuck it in Michael's ass. It is made of plastic and doesn't match any standard devices. She said. It is like some kind of new tech, she added as she focused on the road. True, the standard anti-surveillance around your office failed to pick it up, so I guess it must be just some kind of recording device. Someone would definitely come pick it up later, Lily asked. You wanted them to listen? Elise asked as things began to fall into place. Of course I did, When Theta notified me, I immediately deactivated the latent speech concealing talisman I kept on my body at all times, or else they would only be able to hear random noises in the recording, he explained. I didn't want to startle whoever is behind this. Ah, Elise was surprised. She had no idea that Victor was always prepared. If my guess is right, Michael will call that girl right away and meet with her, she will retrieve the recorder. Lily said, I already notified our agents to track him, but I don't think it will be too useful, as those guys seem to be good at hiding their trail. I already sent all the data we got to Alpha, she will do a deep analysis and cross-referencing and then get back to me. Tonight. Good, Victor nodded. What is the story about Crimson Pearl? Elise suddenly asked. Oh, didn't you figure it out already? I can already tell she is Margaret. Elise said, blushing a little as she remembered one of the published stories she read when she was investigating. But why are those guys interested in her? Corporate espionage, she asked. I mean, Crimson Pearl is not that big of a name to cause such a sensation. Oh, well, Victor chuckled and looked at Margaret who was busy driving. What would be the first thing someone who traveled in time would do? He asked. Ah, Elise quickly figured it out. Get money. Exactly, Victor said, chuckling a bit again. Yes, I needed money. Okay, Margaret defended herself. I couldn't really remember the number of winning lottery tickets like those in stupid novels, and I had no money to do some sports betting or go into the stock market. So the only thing I figured I could easily do was to rewrite some of the most successful web novels of the future in an attempt to get some money, the ones I remembered anyway, she explained. Oh, Elise nodded. Ever since I met Victor, the first was no longer in need of such little money, but after Victor told me that he suspects that there were other time travelers beside us, we decided to use a Crimson Pearl as one of the many lures we set to get to them. Oh, Elise finally got it. There were many false alarms during the last month as some horny fans tried to locate Margaret, but hopefully this time we just got some real fish. Victor said in a cold voice. Chapter 375, May his soul rest in peace. Reaching the mansion, Victor quickly told the girls to get ready to meet their father-in-law. He informed Hilda that Mike would be bringing his father later before heading toward the other building, where Hannah's new lab was constructed. So, you finally decided to leave your harem and come see me? She asked sarcastically. Jealous? He asked as he looked around. The normal-looking basement from before had been transformed into a mad scientist's lab with all kinds of blinking gadgets that were paid for by his credit card. Like hell, she scolded angrily. Are they ready? He asked. My father will be here any moment. Yes, she said, taking 2 bottles and placing them in front of Victor. The left ones are normal blood purifying pills, while in the right one, we have the enhanced one. There are 20 pills in each. She said proudly. Excellent, he said, pocketing the pills. How is the process of the demonification data? He asked. The data Lily got earlier was not sufficient. They must have been using some external agent to extract the essence from the monsters' corpses. I still couldn't figure it out. She sighed. I don't want to start conducting human trials until I am 100% sure. She explained. I see, Alpha got new data 2 days ago, Victor said. It seemed like the chicks would have to wait to get their draconic upgrade. Yes, she already told me. Did you really break into the Von Sway vault? She asked. The Von Sway and the Von Rosen families were her nemesis. Yup, too bad the real valuable stuff was already divided between their elders, Victor signed. We should have got most of the data from their database though. It should contain some things about your family. Alpha did send me something yesterday, but I didn't have time to look at it, Hannah sighed. Is there anything wrong? He asked. My master sent me a letter, a physical one, she said, taking an ancient-looking envelope and giving it to Victor, who frowned, then opened it and read the letter inside. It has only a few words. Come see me. Oh, Victor paused for a moment. You plan to go? He asked. He already anticipated that Hannah's sect, the Immortal Abode, would come to ask for her. And he never planned to keep her against her will. I don't know, Hannah replied. Truth be told, although she missed her master and younger apprentice brother, she didn't miss her stupid sect at all. After she was pampered by living the luxurious life provided by Victor's mansion, she was not looking forward to going back to doing laundry and getting ordered around by grumpy old men. Not only that, but in the sect, she would have to go through a lot of trouble to come out once a year. Here, although Victor was practically working her to the bone, he got her a lab she always dreamed of, and he didn't really restrict her freedom, allowing her to come and go as she desired. The one final point was that here, along with Louise, she could work actively on her family's revenge. And Victor really did keep his promise of not laying his hands on her. His hands were too full for that. Why was she feeling grumpy about that? What would happen if you didn't respond to him? Victor asked, waking her up from her contemplation. Ah, he will probably come here himself, Hannah said, shivering a little. Although she respected her master a lot, she also feared him. Don't worry, he would never dare to take you by force, you have a contract with me after all. Victor said, I believe he has more than one way to convince you to give up that contract, Hannah replied, making a point. He can try, Victor smiled. Hannah had no real idea how scary he had become. He has to give a face to my family after all, and we can always reach a deal if he is a reasonable man. Don't worry, Victor said. Neither he nor Lily had any recollection of the immortal abode, but no matter what, there was nothing money couldn't buy. Ellipsis. Going back to the main mansion, Victor noticed his father's car parked outside as soon as he reached the door. Mike should have already finished with him and then brought him here. Is my father already here? He asked one of the little maids who were sweeping the entrance. They were made to be always working by Hilda to train their muscles. Victor could spot the iron training weights on the girl's arms. You young master, they are in the western living room, the little girl said politely. Victor nodded, rubbing the girl's head before he hurried there. Entering the room, he quickly noticed his handsome father, sitting on a couch next to Vanessa discussing some things. Mike, Lynn, Mira, Monica, the twins, and Mona were sitting to the side awkwardly. The rest of the girls were nowhere to be found. And that's how it happened, Vanessa said. I see, Theodore nodded and looked up as soon as Victor walked in. Father, I see you have already met my mother-in-law. Victor said with a strange look in his eyes. Was his father fishing in his house? Now you know to call her mother-in-law. Theodore scolded. How dare you lock such a delicate lady in a cage and threaten her? Is that how I raised you? Theodore exploded immediately. It seemed like Vanessa had already told him about how she met Victor. Yes, that's how you raised me. Victor replied shamelessly. Mike in the back nodded. Yes, that's the way he raised them to be. Domineering and unreasonable. Shut up. You dare to talk back to me. Theodore scolded angrily once more as he stood up and pointed at Victor. You unfilial child. Master Theodore, you don't need to be angry, this is all now in the past, Victor had already made up for it. Vanessa, feeling the situation was getting out of hand, quickly tried to calm Theodore down. She didn't expect him to stand up for her like this though. He was a real gentleman. Don't worry, I will make sure to thoroughly educate my son. Theodore told Vanessa before looking at Victor, follow me. To your study, he said as he headed out of the room. Victor chuckled dryly then hurried after him. Will he be okay? Vanessa asked nervously. Victor's wives were worried too. Ah, don't worry, Mike said. Victor has tough bones, he added, trying to contain his laughter. I see, Vanessa said. Master Mike, how old is your esteemed father exactly? She suddenly asked. He is 48 or 50, I am not sure, Mike said. Oh, really? Vanessa asked. As someone who was involved in the underworld, she was proficient in telling people's ages, and she could swear that Theodore was not older than 40. She could also tell how healthy and muscular he was under the expensive suit he was wearing. She had to stop herself from trying to touch his chest to check his abs. Yup, I think I should follow them, just to make sure father doesn't punish Victor too hard, Mike suddenly thought of something and said before hurrying after Victor. Vanessa nodded and watched as Mike left the room. She had many things in mind. Mother, Mona finally spoke as soon as Mike was out. Are you perhaps? She didn't continue. I am what? Vanessa asked shamelessly. Earlier she found out that this method worked wonders with her stupid daughter. Are you interested in Victor's father? Mona asked with a blush after some hesitation. She couldn't believe her eyes earlier when Vanessa turned into a bitch in heat as soon as she spotted Theodore enter through the door. She had never seen her mother act like this before. Ah, who wouldn't be interested in such a dependable man? Vanessa asked. He is married, Mona said desperately. And so is your brother-in-law. You heard it from your sisters, their family is okay with polygamy. It is the norm for them. She said. Lately, after seeing how Mina and Mana interacted with the other wives, she began to think that polygamy was not a bad thing after all. She didn't like it, but she was not against it anymore. The most important thing was that Theodore was 100% her type. A strong, noble, and filthy rich gentleman who treated her as a lady. It was as if he came right out of one of her childhood fantasies. Although he is already married to more than one woman, she was a widow herself and she didn't mind sharing. Like Victor, Theodore was rich enough to support all his wives anyway. What about father? Mona asked in a low voice, finally, feeling a little out of sorts. What about him? May his soul rest in peace, I am sure he is feeling happy for me at the moment. Vanessa said, making Mona almost explode. She was sure her father was turning in his grave. Mina and Mana, who were listening to the conversation, had a strange looks on their faces as they examined their mother and then looked at each other. It seemed like Soul Wine's effect on Vanessa had not worn off yet. She was at the moment showing her real character. Still, they didn't mind what was happening. If Vanessa were to marry Theodore, they would not only be Victor's wives but also his older stepsisters. Ellipsis. Father, are you perhaps interested in Vanessa? Victor said as soon as they entered the study. He had been trying hard to cook Mona slowly, but it seemed like Vanessa was also cooked by chance. Call her mother-in-law or stepmother, Theodore said as he sat down, stating his point. You are aiming for that third triplet anyway, it would be much easier if she was your stepsister. He added as he relaxed. True, Victor sighed, he was not really interested romantically in Vanessa but the situation felt weird. Let's discuss something else. First, where is the diary? Theodore asked. It is here, I already finished deciphering large parts of it, I included them in the separate notebook. Victor said, taking out the diary and a slim notebook from his ring and placing them on the table. Theodore frowned, then took the leather-bound diary and began to flip through it. It was in an ancient language, and Theodore could feel the ancient air around it. Since when can you read this? Theodore asked as Mike entered the study and quickly sat to the side. I can't read it, I needed a lot of dictionaries, and had to pay a lot of people to help me with the tough parts. Victor quickly explained. In fact, his notebook contains several mistakes on purpose. I see, Theodore said as a smile crept on his face. He gave Mike the diary to take a look at it, then checked the notebook before he put it in his ring, then watched Victor take out a bottle of pills. Blood purifying pills? Theodore asked as he watched Victor take a second bottle. One of them is the normal type. The second was a result of a lucky accident during the preparation process. Lara took one of those, they not only help the awakening, but they even upgrade the bloodline. Victor said, the only condition is that you must take them before awakening your bloodline. What, really? Theodore asked as Mike finished checking the diary and then returned it to Theodore. Yes, Victor said, suddenly releasing a small part of his bloodline's power, making both Theodore and Mike almost fall to their knees and then look at him with shock. You took it too? Theodore asked in shock. It was the same feeling of suppression he got from Lara. Yup, Victor said. Sadly, I could only create those 20 pills from the ancestors' blood drop. Victor said. 10 of each kind. It is okay, they are more than enough. Theodore said as his eyes began to twinkle, those were some very nice ammunition to use in the family council. Is this the surprise Mike said the two of you have prepared for me? Theodore asked as he pocketed the pills. No, it is not this, we will have to wait until after dinner to show you. Victor said mysteriously. You are not going to tell me what it is about? Theodore asked, raising one eyebrow. Not yet, Victor said, but it involves Grandma's birthday present. He added, winking to Mike, who nodded. If they were to tell their father now that they were attempting an awakening ceremony, the bastard would surely force them to try the awakening artifact on someone else, as he had zero respect for Mike's twin wives. He didn't hate them, but didn't like them either. I see, Theodore frowned. Well, as long as it does not take too long I am fine with it, Theodore said. Planning to leave early? Victor asked. Not just me, but the two of you will come too. Theodore said. The family has ordered that all elite members should return to the island by tomorrow. What? Victor and Mike asked at the same time. Wasn't Grandma's birthday next week? Victor added. This is about something else. Theodore said, sighing. Is it that blood moon? Victor asked. You know about it? Theodore asked, raising one eyebrow. Ah, a little, Victor said, deciding to only tell Theodore about the blood moon dungeon after presenting the awakening artifact. It is a part of it, but that is not the main issue. I can't talk about it now, you will see when we reach the family. Theodore explained. Can I not go? Victor asked. He had a ton of problems to sort out before next week, the most important one was Bianca's problem. If he left now, he would not be able to go back until Grandma's birthday ends at the very least. This would take 2 weeks. No, it is a family supreme order. You have to go, Theodore said sternly. And take my advice not to bring any of your wives, the situation might be dangerous there, he added, not explaining any further. Ah, can I bring Lily? Victor asked. He was not sure what this was about. He was not even sure if something like this happened in his past life. He was not an elite back then anyway. Since she is a family agent, she would be fine, Theodore said, sighing as Victor nodded, then began to rearrange his plans in his head. Oh, by the way, I forgot to give you the gift the family prepared for you after the wedding. Theodore suddenly said. Right, I almost forgot about that, Victor said as he watched Theodore take out a gilded folder from his ring and present it to Victor, who took it and slowly opened it. Holy shit, Victor exclaimed as he stood up in shock. Why the hell would they give me this? He asked. This gift was too big. Someone in the family may have some plans. It came from the council, Theodore said. I delayed giving it to you just to check on it, but I could find nothing, just be careful, he said as he watched Victor look in shock at the paper in his hand. Chapter 376, The Vault. WHO did it. Caspian yelled as he looked around at the empty base. He was furious. WHO dares, he screamed, making the entire dungeon shake. He had just returned from attending the preliminary tournament where he acted as a judge in his pervert father's place. He was hungry for some snacks after a long day. Reaching here, he discovered that not only his snacks were gone, but even his hell silver vault where he kept his demonic sword and armor was nowhere to be found. That thing was supposed to be impregnable, but someone had the audacity to grab the entire thing that weighed several tons. We saw nothing, Master, we just hid outside the cabin like you told us, and no one approached or opened the door. One man said. He was one of the two who were tasked to guard this place. It is not our fault. The alarm at the trapdoor didn't trigger either. The second said didn't continue as he and his friend suddenly found themselves without heads. Useless scum, Caspian snorted as he took a silver-colored talisman and put it on the floor right in front of the vault. Whoever took it must have stood right at this place. The talisman burnt, then nothing happened. Failed, Caspian frowned. His tracking talisman never failed before. This meant that whoever was here was simply too powerful. Caspian thought for a moment and then took a different talisman. This one was vastly different from the other one. It had all kinds of strange symbols all over it as if it was not something a human would make. It also looked very old. Caspian placed it right under where the vault was, then stepped back 3 feet. This time there was a response as the talisman burnt in an ominous green fire. Its smoke slowly reformed into 3 symbols. 2 faint ones and a very visible last. Dark, space, and corpse. Caspian frowned. The Von Sway, he wondered. Ellipsis. I can't leave with you, Lily said directly. She was sitting with Victor and his harem in the study having an emergency meeting. You have other plans? Victor asked. He had just informed the girls of his departure with his father and was giving them their roles for the next period of time. Yes, my family will come to take me in a couple of months at most, and I need to get a few things ready before I become full under their supervision. She explained. If your family visit took too long, I will miss this chance. Victor frowned. Lily was keeping very vague on purpose. Dungeon diving? He asked. Yes, and some recruitment too, she nodded after some hesitation. Can you take Elise and Monica with you? He asked. He wanted the girls to bond a little and at the same time use the chance to level them up a little. No, it is too dangerous, she replied directly. I see, just be careful, Victor said as he turned toward the twins. Do you plan to stay here or go with your mother when she returns home? He said. She has already reserved a ticket for next week. We will go with her. We will work with Alpha to save Mona from those bastards who were scamming her. Mina said. Good, then take Theta and Ruby with you. I will give you a map to an unopened F-rank dungeon near Ring Cloud City where you will be staying. Take Mona and her stupid justice ring there and make them players after you finish. He said. I will keep in contact with you through our link, but you also have to be careful. We understand. They nodded as Theta looked at him. You want me to start the Players Guild there? She asked. Yes, it was far enough from Vane City to not arouse any suspicion. Can you do it? He asked. Yes, she nodded. Good, make sure to recruit Mona and her friends to your cause. Victor said. He couldn't keep protecting the girls, they needed to get stronger by themselves. Although it would be dangerous, it was something they had to face sooner or later. And it was not like he didn't give each of them a ton of defense talismans and a protection artifact. Can't I go with you? Lynn asked. My father's orders, Victor said. And you will be taking care of that Bianca girl, you are the only one available that I can use my power through at the moment. He added. Margaret and Mira in addition to the assassin girls will be your support. He said. Lin was strong enough to defeat any enemy, so the task of impersonating Crimson Pearl was left to her. I understand, she said, pouting. She really wanted to use this chance to get closer to him without any of the girls there. Arya, I will leave the company in your hands. If there is anything you want, just contact me. He finally told Arya, make sure that the movies go on as planned. And also make sure that Hilda doesn't go too hard on the girls. I understand, she nodded. Monica, I will be leaving Lara in your care, report to me if anything were to change with her, and consult Elle and Yin if you find anything strange, he finally told Monica, who nodded. Now, you girls can go. Margaret, Elise, and Lily, you stay, he said, sighing. The girls looked at each other, then sighed and left. They were feeling a little left out and jealous as Victor didn't tell them everything. Still, they decided to just trust him. He had too many secrets, and many of them already regret knowing some of those. Is there anything else you want to tell us about? Elise asked as she watched Victor remain in his seat. You seemed really annoyed when you called us here earlier, is there anything wrong? She asked. Yes, he said. You know that my family had supposedly prepared a big wedding gift for us, he said. The girls nodded. Well, using my connections with the Elder Council, I wanted them to grant us an island. One of the many they control around the world, he said. You were planning to build a base? Margaret asked. Yes, the one here is too conspicuous and many spies are already all around it, limiting our capabilities. He explained. So, did you get one? Margaret asked. I got this, Victor said, taking out an envelope from his ring, then throwing it on the table in front of Margaret, who couldn't help but rush and open it. Inside there was a map, a property deed, and a few scenic photographs of a long sandy beach surrounding a volcanic island. HSSSSSSSSSSSSS. Lily gasped. That hellhole belonged to your family? She asked in shock. Apparently, now it belongs to me, Victor said with annoyance. He had no idea. His family really had uncountable properties all over the world. And Victor had a feeling it was the world's will that led him to this place. It couldn't have been just a coincidence. What is that place? Elise asked. The island seemed just like a nice tropical retreat. In the reckoning, that entire part of the ocean will form into a giant vortex that will become a space gate straight into hell, the demon's original world. Victor said, making both Margaret and Elise look at the map of the island. It will be one of the invasion points, and even after humanity retrieved most of the land, that place remained very hard to guard against, he added. They called the Water Gate. The world's emperor had to build multiple bases nearby and station a gatekeeper super science there all year round to keep the demons from getting in. Isn't this good? Can't we just build a fortress there and use it to fend off the demons and get the gate for ourselves? Margaret asked. The gate will be 60 miles wide. The island will be completely eradicated when the gate opens. Lily comments, making Margaret imagine a smaller gate retreat. The island's location is near the center of the vortex, it might even be its very center. Lily paused as she and Victor jumped up from their seats and looked at the map showing the island's location. They were focusing on the numbers on the margins, the longitude, and the latitude. Margaret, you may have a point there, Victor said as he looked at Lily. The gate there might not be a coincidence, Elise said. Do you know how gates are born? She asked. While it is possible to open gates to other worlds, they are very fragile and usually collapse in minutes, Victor said. The imperial family back then believed that the 4 gates were the work of nature. He added. The 5 gates, Lily corrected him. The imperial family kept a secret 5th gold gate, that's the reason they built their capital in that stupid place. Oh, Victor, who had no idea, nodded. Anyway, it could be that there is some artifact or ruin on that island, it might be what opened the gate, he pondered. Then, what if it was someone, not something that is there? Elise asked. Do you mean that giving me that island was not a coincidence? Victor asked. Elise nodded. I am not sure, did the other gates also connect to that hell place? She asked again. No, just the fire gate and the water gate, Lily replied, then paused, getting the little girl's point. Demons? Margaret asked. Victor didn't reply, he paused thinking about something before he quickly took his phone and sent a letter. He got the reply straight away, and it made him frown. Whose idea was it? Elise asked. Who chose the island? Anne, Victor replied. Did his grandmother make some deal with the demons? Impossible. In his past life, she passed away before the reckoning and she didn't have to resort to such means. Why would she give him, specifically him, that specific island to begin with? This didn't make any sense. He was just a stupid brat to her, nothing important. Let's wait until you return from your current mission before we go exploring. Lily said, whether it was a coincidence, the world's will, or a scheme, it will all be clear once we get there. Let's do that then, Victor said. As he stood up. Is this over? Margaret asked as she began to stretch. No, I have one more thing. Victor said as he took out a vault from his storage space and placed it on the ground with difficulty. It was super heavy. I remember seeing this in your father's office. Do you know how to open it without activating the protection mechanism? He asked Lily. Is this Caspian's? She asked in shock. She knew how precious this vault was. Even her cheap father decided to use it for himself to keep one of the shards after it was retrieved from the Heavenly Sect's ruins. Yup, that demonic prince armor he hides in there will be perfect for the Nutcracker, it will make it extra authentic. He said with a devilish smile. Even high-ranking demons will have to grovel at my feet when they see it. You can't equip that, you know, only real demons can. Lily said as she began to examine the vault. Ah, I have my ways and I only need its aura, don't worry. Victor lied. Ellipsis. Tom rubbed his hands as he looked at the huge vault in front of him. He was currently in his separate meditation room where no one would enter and disturb him. He usually spends his time here, trying the system-supplied toys under the pretext of meditating. System, how to open this baby? Tom asked with a depraved smile. Calculating, use the PIN code. It should be 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 3, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9. After opening it moved to the side, the system detected a defense talisman. I understand, Tom said as he began to slowly turn the dial according to the system's instructions until he reached the final digit where he heard a clear click. Stepping to the side, he slowly turned the knob and opened the vault's door. From there, a vortex of flames erupted and hit the exact spot Tom was standing earlier in front of the vault. The system was right once again. Inside, waiting for him was a golden sword and rolled-up scroll that Tom couldn't help but unroll and look at. It was the painting of a pretty lady in some very lewd position. Careful looking at that painting, it will increase your libido. It is an evil artifact that is used to distract enemies. Oh, Tom quickly rolled the scroll back and then took the lavish-looking sword. The Justice Bringer, S. Increase damage plus 10%. Oh, this sword is not bad. Tom said as he looked at it. Why would Caspian lock up such a good sword? Tom asked. Because it is stolen. Caspian doesn't dare to use it. The system quickly replied. Then how am I going to use it? Tom asked with annoyance, then almost gasped as he watched the sword as it changed shape into a normal-looking one. The whimsical system felt your frustration. Due to the system's greater than whimsical nature less than it decided to change the sword's shape for you free of charge. Thanks, Tom said as he began to swing the sword around. It was really easy to use and he really likes it. The system reminds you to get rid of the safe as Caspian might be able to trace it. Preferred method. System dissolve, just put it in the storage space and the system will do the rest. Cost. 10 system coins. Can't we just keep it in the storage space? Tom asked. Possible. Cost. 1500 coins per day. It is just too heavy. Ah, just dissolve it, Tom said. He really liked this sturdy thing, but apparently, he couldn't keep it. Chapter 377, Theo. After leaving the study, Victor headed upstairs to his room for a long, goodbye session, with his harem. After knowing that he would be leaving, they demanded it. So after leaving the exhausted girls to wonder about the tornado that just wrecked their very existence, he took a shower and then headed downstairs toward the dining room where Hilda had already prepared dinner with the help of the little maids who bowed respectfully when they saw him. Where is father? Victor asked Mona, who was discussing something with Elise, who shot him a glare and then looked away bashfully. She wanted to join the goodbye party upstairs but was kicked out by Margaret. Ah, how the hell should I know? Mona snapped as she looked away at Mike, who was sitting on the other side. He was here a moment ago, Mike shrugged. Are you asking about me? Theodore, who was adjusting his suit, said. I was in the restroom, he said as he took a seat at the table. Will your wives be joining us? He asked to change the subject. Probably not, they will rest until the morning, Victor said, making Mona shoot him a glare as a few maids prepared the dishes. Sorry, I am late. Vanessa, who seemed to be also adjusting her dress, suddenly entered the dining room and took a seat in a hurry before she stood up abruptly. Mom, is there anything wrong? Mona asked. Ah, no, I thought I saw a spider but I was mistaken, she said as she sat down, slowly this time, not forgetting to glare at Theodore, blaming him for being too rough. Let's eat, Victor said. Where is Mina and Mana? Vanessa asked. They decided to rest early. We are saying our goodbyes, you know, Victor explained shamefully for the second time. Oh, good, I need some rest myself, Vanessa said, fully knowing what he meant. Do you really have to leave tonight, Master Theodore? She asked. I told you to drop the titles. You can call me just Theo, Theodore said. And yes, I have to leave. Family orders. I will make sure to come to visit you in Ring Cloud City later after I finish with my current assignment, he said. Winking to her. Oh, Theo, I will be waiting, she said bashfully, blushing a little, making her daughter who was watching her almost break the fork in her hand. Damn perverts. Ellipsis. The dinner finished quickly, and after an evening tea, Victor, who seemed to keep looking at his watch, invited Theodore, who was wondering about the surprise his sons prepared to follow him. Are you planning to add Vanessa to your wives? Victor asked directly. Couldn't you wait a bit before hitting a home run? Ah, well, you see, with both Luna and your mother pregnant, I was feeling a little. Mom is pregnant, both Mike and Victor asked, interrupting their father. Ah, yes, after your wedding, Theodore said, victoriously clearing his throat. He should take his wives to more weddings. I see, Victor said as he frowned a little. This never happened in his previous life, so he had no idea. He really did change many things since returning. So, what is this about? Theodore asked curiously as they reached their target after walking for 15 minutes. They were standing in a field that, although inside the grounds of Victor's mansion, was a little far from the building, near the property's northern edge. In the original plan for the building, this place was cleared to be a golf field, but the project didn't move on after Nick took over the building management, and Theodore, who was promoted to an elder back then, didn't care less as he began planning for a bigger mansion. It was now lit brightly by an array of lights, revealing a strange setup of mirrors that one girl was preparing. If he remembered correctly, her name was Hannah. According to the reports, she was the girl bought at the Von Geldstadt auction a while back. That girl Victor called Theta was there too, assisting her. Those two girls seemed to have become good friends. He, Victor, Hannah, Theta, Mike, and his slut twins were the only ones here. Ah, just relax. We will finish in a while, Victor said as he guided Honey and Bunny to sit on a couch placed in between the mirrors. Theodore frowned, then watched as Victor kept looking at the sky and his watch, then stepped back with Mike. Get in position, Victor said, in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Victor pressed a button to turn off all the lights, then grabbed a rope, and pulled to remove the cloth that covered one large mirror. Theodore frowned, noticing that there was a heap of gems right under one of the mirrors. They were so neatly arranged, that Theodore didn't discover them before. But now, after the lights were off, they began to give that unique faint light, allowing him to notice them. Before he could ask about those, the gems disintegrated, and the surface of the mirror above them began to shine before two beams of light shot from it to hit the twins right in their eyes. It all took 1 second, making the twins lose their consciousness for a second before they regained the clarity in their eyes a moment later as Victor turned the lights back on again. Was it a success? Mike, who seemed a little worried, asked as he hurried to check on them. Ah, yes, we have become players, they said excitedly as they threw themselves at him. I am a healer. I am a Posioner, they reported. What just happened? Theodore, who took a few minutes to realize what happened, asked in shock as he looked at the mirrors, at the twins, then finally at Victor, who was writing something. Ah, well, Victor hesitated. Father, Victor found this awakening artifact when he conquered the moon dungeon a week ago. Mike quickly said. What? Theodore asked, then looked at the small mirror that shined earlier. Is that it? He asked again. Yes, it uses the power of the stars to awaken players. I tried it on Mira and then at Elise before and it worked. Didn't you see how Elise was healed? Victor said as Theodore just glared at him. Today I decided to test if we can focus the stars in a way to allows more than one player to awaken, and it is a success. He added. Theodore kept looking at Victor and Mike, not knowing what to say. He was absolutely shocked. We plan to present this to the family, Mike said. Mike will take all the credit, Victor added as he looked at his father, waiting for him to grasp what they had just told him. It took Theodore 1 whole minute to say anything. What are the conditions for its use? He asked. If this thing had some crazy conditions it would be useless. He had heard of some artifacts that only worked on virgins. Maybe this one required sluts. Victor quickly brought up a piece of paper and presented it to his father, making the latter, who was frowning, gasp again. 100% activation rate. 3 days cooldown. High authority. What is the authority you two got? Theodore looked up and asked the twins. 7, they replied nervously, making Victor nod. He was still not sure on what principle did this artifact allocate authority. How much did Mira get? Theodore asked Victor. It was rude to ask another player about their status, but Theodore was not a polite man, not privately anyway. 10, Victor lied. Mira now had 11 authority points after he buffed her up like the rest of his harem. Holy shit, Theodore gasped again. We can't give this to the family. He exclaimed right away. Why? Mike asked. Because this will change everything. The existing power structure will be ruined. Theodore scolded. The elders will never agree to allow the new generation of heirs to be more powerful than them. The two of you might even lose your elite heir status. He explained. In the world of players, authority was everything. I think this will take a few years to happen, and we are not sure if every contestant will really get high authority, Victor said. Idiot, Theodore scolded. The family is already boiling due to the internal fighting. Even if 1 out of 100 gets 10 authority points, they will be the prime candidates. We can't simply hide it, our family is already in a mess. Mike said. We only need to secure some exclusive usage right to use it when we present it to the family. He spoke as Victor told him. We need to raise our own people. He added. Oh, Theodore pondered for a moment. He was contemplating hiding this mirror and using it to build his own army, but Mike was right. If they were to hide it for a while, it would be dangerous. If this were to be discovered by the family, and it surely would, they would surely not forgive them. It would be far more beneficial just to give it to the family while keeping the right to use it. It was an awkward silence. You plan to give this as a present to Mother on her birthday? Theodore asked. Yes, if the esteemed grandmother were to be the one who owns it, the family elders would not be able to forcibly grab it, and I am sure she would give us the conditions we want. Mike said. Exactly, Victor was the one who got it. Theodore had to ask again as his head cooled down and turned to look at Victor. Yes, Mike said. Yup, I found it in a hidden corner in the Moon Dungeon, but I want Mike to take the credit, this will help him in his bid for the Patriarch position. Victor quickly clarified. Indeed, with the Linda scheme, this will be perfect. Theodore nodded. Is the Moon Dungeon really closed? He asked. After going back in the records, the family had figured out the way of entrance and had been preparing to send a team there when it should open a week later. Yes, I was swimming under the moon with Lily and Lynn when we were dragged inside. Victor said. Apparently, it was some ancient test zone or something. Later some crazy self-proclaimed emperor conquered it, saying it was a demon bastion or something as he killed a bunch of evil rabbits by flicking his fingers. What? Theodore asked, frowning a bit. Do you know what that means? He asked Victor. No idea. Seemed dangerous. That guy even killed some people whom he claimed were demons in disguise. Victor explained. I bet he just didn't like them. Prepare a report about what happened, then give it to me when we. He paused as Victor presented him with a stapled stack of papers. You already prepared it? Theodore asked. Yes, Victor replied. I always like to be ready. He added, telling the truth for once. Ellipsis. Thanks a lot, Alex. The girl said, blushing a little as she hugged Alex from the back. Don't worry about it, Alex said as he carried the girl on her back. Next time be careful when we hunt wolves, those beasts are very cunning and tend to attack in packs. She said. I will. She chuckled, then turned to face the two other girls who were following and smiled victoriously. Both of them look at her hatefully then look away. She had won this round. How long until we reach that inn? Alex suddenly asked. An hour or so. Don't worry, we will be able to reach it before dark. Are you sure there is a phone in there? Alex asked. Of all the places on the planet, she was cast off to this wild location right after leaving the Moon Dungeon. She had been trying to find a way to contact Victor ever since. But this place is really too backward. Thankfully he managed to meet those girls and helped save them when they were in trouble. They have been traveling together ever since. According to them, this place was a large ruined forest under the jurisdiction of the Sword Sect. They were here to hunt for the rare silver blood herb for one of their elders, but they were cornered by some wolves when Alex appeared and helped them. Yes, the other disciples who come from the outside usually go there to contact their parents. Good, Alex said. Is there someone you really need to contact? One of the girls behind suddenly asked. Yes, it is my Friend, he was with me at that dungeon and I wanted to check on his safety. Alex said. Oh, is that, friend, a male or a female? The other girl asked. A male of course, Alex replied, wondering why the girls kept asking her such stupid questions. Chapter 378, Herbal Tea. Mona sighed as she sat on the mansion's porch and watched as Victor's maids carried on with their morning training. Both Elise and Margaret were sitting with her. It was still early for breakfast and the girls seemed to have something in their minds, especially Margaret who was still in her super expensive silk pajamas and had dark circles around her eyes. She seemed to be struggling to drink some kind of herbal tea from a large mug that she had been holding for the last 15 minutes. Last night was tough, Elise asked. She seemed jealous. Don't remind me, that bastard left without even saying goodbye. Margaret grumbled. When I woke up it was already 5 a.m., the rest of the girls might not leave bed until noon. She spat as she drank some of her tea with difficulty. Mona looked at her and sighed. She didn't know what to think. Mistress Margaret, there is a phone call for young Master Victor. One little maid suddenly walked from inside the mansion and said to Margaret. Is it important? Margaret asked. Victor left last night with his father, and at the moment he was flying to the family archipelago. It is Alex. Oh, give me the phone. It was Lily who answered as she walked out of the mansion. She was well dressed as if she was preparing to go out. Alex, where are you? Lily asked, making Mona wonder who Alex was. Ah, I am in Tolar. I am not sure exactly where in it, but they call this place the Bloodwolf Forest. It is a ruin zone under the Sword Sect jurisdiction, Alex said. Mona could hear a whiny voice over the phone. What, Tolar? That place is closed up by snow most of the year due to the rough terrain. Lily exclaimed, how the hell did you get over there? I don't know, I just teleported here after the moon dungeon ended. Can I speak with the young Victor? No, Victor is not here. He has already left on a family mission and he will probably be out of contact for a day or so, Lily replied. Ah, then can you help me? Send me a helicopter or something. This place is literally cut out from civilization, even my satellite phone refuses to work. Phones can't have a signal inside ruins. Lily scolded. And helicopters don't work there. You are talking to me using a landline phone, right? Yes. Ah, then, what should I do? If I want to return on my own this would take forever. Then you better start walking. Remember that Victor can't have anything to do with you officially. We can't use family resources to help you. You have to find a way on your own. Lily said mercilessly. Don't you have some money? They don't accept Wyran Principality currency here, Alex said, whining like a girl. Oh, then too bad. We can't really do, Lily said. Wait, did you say that you are near the Sword Sect? She suddenly added as if she thought of something. Yes, a ruin, yup. Is it supervised by the Sword Sect or owned by them? Supervised. Oh, good. Still you better be careful. Although supervised ruins are open to all players, some sects, disciples might think that it is their private property and try to rob you. It's fine. I already met a few Sword Sect disciples when I was sent here. We became best friends. Alex clarified. Oh, interesting. Do they know your real identity? Ah, I am using the ID Victor prepared for me, Alex said. Whispering. Perfect. There is an easy way to get back, and at the same time to do a mission for Victor, Lily who seemed to have thought of something said. What? In fact, this is very important. Victor was really troubled about how to find an agent near the Sword Sect. It seems like you were very lucky. If you did this perfectly Victor will owe you big time. She added, causing Margaret who was drinking her tea with difficulty to look at Lily and raise one eyebrow. It seemed like they had another scammer in the family. Really? Alex asked. She was tempted. Yes, listen up, this is very important. There will be a huge tournament in a month or so, right? Yes, the girls here keep talking about it. Alex said, causing Lily to raise one eyebrow. Quote. Good. Before the tournament begins, you have to enter the Sword Sect, and find one of their elite disciples, then become friends with them or at least a part of their entourage. This way not only would you be fulfilling Victor's mission, but you will also be able to leave Tolar easily when you come with them when they leave for the tournament. Ah, right, what is the mission exactly? Find a girl named Jasmine, she would be a servant belonging to one of the elite disciples. What should I do with her? Make her fall for you, then impregnate her. Lily said with a serious face, making Margaret who was listening to the conversation and had just happened to take a sip from her mug spit everything in her mouth. Impersonate her. Impregnate her. Lily said it loudly this time. Ah, what? Can't you do such a simple thing? Ah, no, I think that is a little unethical. I am not telling you to rape her or anything, aren't you a man? Ah, I am, but your request doesn't go with my principles. Alex said after some thinking. Like you have any, fine, just make her fall for you and put her in a position that she will have to follow you once you leave. Lily said, she is just a maid there, I think we can provide her with a better life. Ah, but, do as I told you, this is vital for Victor's future plan. Lily said before she directly hung up, then looked hatefully at Margaret, who kindly handed her a napkin to wipe the tea all over her hair. Do you really think this thing will help you? Lily asked as she smelled the herbal odor of the tea. You can never know, Margaret said, ignoring Mona's curious looks. You must know that the higher the bloodline is, the harder it becomes. Victor's bloodline is one of the strongest and purest. I don't have any bloodline, Margaret shrugged. Whatever, Lily sighed. Now, where are you going this early in the morning dressed like that? Margaret asked, checking Lily. She was dressed in a formal tight suit. She seemed to have dropped her stupid silk veil, intending to use a normal medical mask to cover her face. Just to do some business, Lily said. Is there something you want? Nah, you look like some wife who was going to cuck her husband. Margaret replied as she began to sip from her mug again. Maybe I am, Lily smiled evilly, putting on the face mask. Oh. I will be taking the Trehorn. Is it in the garage? Yeah, the key in the car, and it already has a rope, a shovel, and 2 spare tires in the back, Margaret said with smile. Perfect, Lily sat then walked out confidently. Mona watched all this with a frown. What the fuck were those two talking about? That's when she heard the sliding door behind her open. Why is that girl dressed as if she was going to meet some secret lover? Isn't she Victor's wife? It was Vanessa who asked. She seemed to be a little drowsy and was walking slowly with a cup of tea in her hand. Who knows, girls can't be trusted. Margaret said, thinking about something. Mom, are you okay? Mona asked, feeling that her mother was a little unnatural. I must have drunk a lot last night. I can't even remember what happened yesterday since we left the restaurant, Vanessa said, holding her head, making Margaret raise one eyebrow as Mona looked at her mother and then at her. You don't remember what happened last night? Margaret asked weirdly. Nah, I always had low alcohol tolerance. Damn it, I am sure I asked that waiter for a non-alcoholic beverage, Vanessa said. Did I do or say anything weird yesterday? She asked, looking up at her daughter. No, we just returned here, had dinner with Victor's father, and then went to sleep, Mona said. Biting her lip a little after saying that. Really? Vanessa frowned. She remembered. Nothing. This headache is killing me. What kind of herbal tea is this? Why is it so bitter? She suddenly asked. An old recipe that will definitely become really big in the future, Margaret said, then paused for a moment. You should drink some more of it, it is good for your headache. She added as he slowly left the porch to refill her mug with a strange smile. Vanessa was definitely affected by the soul wine they used on Michael the previous day. Although the dosage was very little, she seemed to be the type of person who gets drunk really fast, and the soul wine must have made her let go of all her self-constraint and act like a bitch in heat. Margaret was unsure if Vanessa would remember what happened yesterday, as they never tried the effect of such dosage on memory, but if she ever did, they would surely find her digging some hole to bury herself in. Ellipsis. Victor slowly opened his eyes and looked outside of the plane's window. He had just instructed Rita, who was overseeing the girls in the cauldron. He planned to let them go, but now that he had been delayed, he decided to let them work a little more for him, constructing a village inside the cauldron. Who knows, it might come in handy. He sighed as he switched between his blood slaves. First was Victor's favorite toy, Tom. He was training with his new sword. That thing was 100% genuine, and Victor found it in the moon dungeon with one of the dead participants. After emptying the vault of its real precious treasures, Victor placed it in there and then let Tom find it with the scroll. Next was Lynn. She was doing her morning makeup. Next Daniel. Nothing, as a student he was just in class with Lara at the moment. Wait, wasn't Lara in a girls-only school? Maybe it was a joint lesson with that other aristocratic school or something. Anyway, he was beginning to check her up, but Elle, who was sitting beside her and seemed to have been busy explaining something, suddenly turned back to look at him. She smiled and slid her hand on her neck before pointing at him. He looked away, feeling a little scared. When did Elle become a bully? Strange, he should check on her very soon to remind her who is the boss. Next was Poe. he was sucking up to some elder. It seemed like he was still on the island. Maybe Victor should go meet him. This guy has never done anything suspicious ever since he took over the body. It was as if he was waiting for something. Finally, Alex. She was in an inn, talking with Lily over the phone as three girls who stood beside her kept shooting her some lascivious looks. Victor decided to pause and listen until the call was over and Alex hung up and began to bite her lip nervously. What was Lily planning? Jasmine. Victor never heard that name before. He sighed. He had long realized that ever since their wedding night, Lily had changed. She must also have her own plan. It must have been something she didn't wish to tell him. Something so big that he couldn't handle it. Still, Lily's plans were not something he couldn't predict, like the things she was planning to do before the end of the month. It didn't go with his principles, but he was not really against it. At the end of the day, no matter what, he trusted her. He owned a part of her soul and she owned a part of his after all. Still, if she ever decided to try anything funny, he would make sure to spank that butt of hers into oblivion. Why are you smiling like that? Theodore suddenly asked. Just thinking about my harem, Victor said, shamelessly. You know that many of the elders in the family are really upset that you disregarded the family rules and held a wedding like that. They were the ones who wanted me to marry both Lynn and Nova, Victor said. The mass wedding was the best way to give up Nova without getting humiliated. I know, you did good, Theodore said. If you told me your plan earlier, I would have arranged a few more wives. After your elite status was announced, many people have contacted me about wanting to present their daughters to you, Theodore said. You already told me that, Victor said, remembering Harper. That girl must be on her way to the heavenly sect now. Alpha's girls must intercept her soon. I did. Yes, when you told me about Nova, Victor said. Right, Theodore nodded. Anyway, you better prepare. I will tell those guys to start sending the girls to you after the tournament. Tournament? Victor asked. I already heard many elders speak of that. Even Master Harvey mentioned it once. What is this about? Victor said. It is a big event organized by the Players' Council. Mike, who was sitting to the side, answered. Yes, it is very important for the family. Theodore nodded. It is conducted once every 100 years, and only those elite members of every family who are younger than 25 years old can enter. The winners in this tournament would not only get a lot of benefits. Their order would also decide the ranking of the powers and who will be the controlling members of the Player Council for the next 100 years or so. Theodore added, making Mike, who didn't know about this, also tune in. Chapter 379, Blackstone Island. Julian sat on the edge of a main street looking aimlessly at the rich passers-by who totally ignored him and the empty cardboard box he set in front of him to collect donations. How the hell did that happen? He wondered as he looked up at the tall buildings that surrounded him. It was a week ago when he was using the money he got from Alice to rent an apartment. The building owner sent his daughter to show Julian around, but as soon as they reached the apartment, a group of policemen appeared out of thin air, pushed him to the ground and accused him of selling drugs to minors. Apparently, there was some kind of a mix-up with the previous apartment occupant. Things were quickly cleared up when the scared young girl told the cops that Julian had just arrived here to see the newly emptied apartment, but by that time it was too late. The cops had already found the money Julian was stashing in his trousers. That was when Julian heard the term civil forfeiture for the first time. The cops who hurried to stuff the money in bags told him that it was drug money and it had to be taken to the station. The cops didn't even care for his pleas as they took every last penny he had. Seemingly, there had been a nasty female officer in their unit before, and she had been stopping them from flexing their muscles for the last few months. Now that she had been transferred away after wrongfully accusing some big shot of raping her, they began to return to their old methods again. After going with the cops to the station to clarify things or demand an explanation, he was shocked to realize that what they did was completely lawful, and to get his money back, he had to spend nearly the same amount in legal fees. So, without understanding what happened, he was left on the streets again without a penny. James Trove had told him that he might be unlucky for the next few days due to the curse the bastard, Caspian, placed on him, but Julian couldn't believe it would be this severe. He could only sit at the side of the street and beg for now. The test will soon be over, he reminded himself. After that, he would show those smelly cops, and then go grab Alice to reveal his identity to her. He couldn't wait to see her reaction. Ah, if it is not Julian, someone suddenly said, making him look up. It was none other than Lulu, who was dressed in a very short skirt that boldly declared to the world what the girl did for a living. Are you still alive? Julian asked. He was genuinely surprised. The last time he saw this bitch she was getting dragged kicking by the guards at the wedding. He was sure they were going to kill her and then burn the body, but it seemed like the Von Weiss family's ways were not as thorough as his own family's. Shut up. Don't remind me. Lulu, who seemed a little bit thinner, cursed. Why are you here anyway? Did that rich bitch you clung up on to dump you? She asked with disgust, changing the subject as if she didn't want to remember what she had been through. This does not concern you. Now, if you don't mind, stop blocking the honest business I am trying to run here and move back to whatever hole you crawled out from. Julian said coldly. After spending that night with Alice, he realized how blind he had been even considering dating Lulu before. You call begging a business? Lou, who didn't seem to want to leave, said. It is an honest job at least, not like a certain someone, who only knows how to sell her body. Julian said, checking her skirt. From where he was sitting, he had a nice viewing angle. You are the one who was selling your body, bastard. Lulu, who got angry, scolded as she pointed at Julian. Where is the police? This man is trying to assault me in broad daylight. She began to scream out of nowhere. Bitch. Julian cursed as he quickly grabbed the trusty cardboard and began to run. From experience, he knew no one would believe him. Bam! Julian, who was not looking straight ahead, bumped into someone and was sent into the ground rolling. Ah, sorry, he automatically apologized as he sat up and looked with shock at the pretty girl who didn't even budge. She was dressed differently and had a mask on her face, bet he could easily recognize her. It was none other than his little sister. Lily. She glanced at him and then at Lulu, who was still screaming and attracting many pedestrians to come look. Lily sighed. She looked at Julian, then sighed again before turning to Lulu, who was yelling. Slowly, from behind her back she took out a retractable baton which she unfolded with one flick from her wrist. It was as if she had done this thousands of times before. She hit Lulu's face without hesitation. Ah! Lulu screamed, but a moment later she felt a kick hit her abdomen, sending her flying and crashing into the glass front of a nearby store. Bang! What? Julian wanted to ask. Don't worry, that slut is still alive, Lily said. To tell the truth, she really did consider killing that bitch for a moment there, but in the end, she let her go with only a few broken bones as a favor for Margaret. Police! Help! Someone! Ah! Lulu, who seemed to have regained her consciousness, began to scream again. Someone call an ambulance. I am too young to die. Lily sighed, put the baton away, and then grabbed the shocked Julian from his collar and shoved him into her large black car. Giving Lulu one last look as if she was considering finishing her for good, she climbed into the driver's seat and drove away under the surprised eyes of those who came to watch the fun. There was a police officer nearby, who planned to interfere, but noticing the white shield sticker on the car's back window, he quickly moved away and acted as if he saw nothing. His motto in life was to bully the weak and fear the strong. Ellipsis. Thanks, Julian said after making sure that his cardboard box was still intact. Did you remember me from the wedding? He asked. That was the only time he officially met Lily, so he presumed she thought he was Alice's boyfriend. I already know who you are, dearest brother, Lily said coldly as she drove the car heading toward the nearest exit. What? Julian asked in shock. How? Sleep for now, Lily said. We will have a lengthy talk later. We still have a long trip ahead of us, Lily said as Julian began to feel very sleepy, and collapsed moments later. Looking at him, Lily sighed. She knew many things that Victor didn't. And like him, she couldn't really let her family suffer like what happened in the other timeline. There were many things that needed fixing, some of them would be taken care of by Victor, while others were things she had to do by herself, like fixing Julian's future destined class. Wait, she looked through the rear mirror and frowned. Someone was tailing her. It was those Von Krone agents. Damn them, she would definitely kick their sorry asses when she returned to her family. Maybe she would even try that sword she was going to get on them. She already had a name for it. Nut Slicer. Ellipsis. Victor shivered a little and opened his eyes, then looked around. He must have fallen asleep. Looking out of the window, he could see that plane had descended into the military-grade airport on the western island in the Von Weiss family archipelago. It was already sunset, but Victor knew that their day was far from over when he spotted the ready-to-take-off helicopter nearby. They seemed to be in a hurry. Let's go, Theodore said. We are already late, he added, confirming Victor's guess. Seriously, father, can't you tell us what this is about? Mike, who walked out of the other cabinet, asked as he buttoned up his silk shirt to hide the multiple hickeys that were now adorning his muscular chest. Those flight attendants were wild. I told you it is about the tournament, you will know when you get there. Theodore said. He clearly had no idea like his sons. Descending from the plane, the family of three hurried to the helicopter as Victor expected. No, not exactly, they were not flown toward the main island as he presumed they would, but toward the south. Why are we heading toward the mines? Theodore asked the captain. Ah, sorry elder, I don't really know, the pilot replied politely. I had been tasked with flying you to the Blackstone Island as soon as you arrived, we have been transporting the elite heirs toward there since morning. He added, explaining the situation. Are we the last ones expected to arrive? Theodore asked. No, Elder Young is not here yet, his plane should arrive in half an hour, and I will be back to get him after delivering you. The pilot said. Good, Theodore nodded. Although he liked to be late, he didn't want to be the last to arrive. The rest of the trip was mostly silent, and it was already dark when they soon arrived at a long large island that was barely visible under the moonless night sky. Blackstone Island was one of the main reasons the family settled on this archipelago. Under this island, extends a large web of natural caves and tunnels that compose one of the largest known ruins in the world. The Blackstone Ruin, the treasure trove of the Von Weiss family. Some say it was a remnant of an ancient S-rank dungeon, while others say that it was a naturally forming ruin or a part of another world. No one really knew, but in those tunnels many rare minerals, gems, and herbs are discovered every year, and they are considered the backbone of the family. There were rumors about a few artifacts and skill books that were found down there too, but Victor was not privy to that information back then. The only thing he was sure of was that the old family awakening treasure was discovered here. In the other timeline, this place was completely excavated by that young Light Lord bastard after he burnt the Von Weiss family down. Victor didn't really know what he found here. Still, he had always suspected that the attack was not just an act of revenge. That guy came here prepared to dig the family up, so maybe there was more to it. Thinking about something, Victor quickly sent Kai and Hilda some instructions before putting his phone away. Ruins were like dungeons, phones and high-tech gadgets rarely worked inside. He needed to be ready for contingencies. Chapter 380, Bruno. Margaret sat in her room, a popsicle in her mouth as she typed on her computer. Fuck, she cursed. Her revenue from stocks was not as big as she was expecting. Victor was right, some other time traveler was messing with the timeline. Although they were working very subtly and only making profits on the margins, their effect was getting bigger and bigger, affecting Margaret's predictions. There were a few things that she could figure out though. Firstly, the other side was not a lone person, they were acting through an organization, so it was very hard to pinpoint their origins. They are like a swarm of rats in the stock market, nearly indistinguishable from the average broker. Secondly, they started their actions more than 5 years ago, as there were few things from back then that diverged from Margaret's memories. So, after cursing for another 5 minutes, Margaret finished her herbal tea as she set a few random buy positions before turning the screen off. She pushed her chair back and relaxed, wondering what to do. Victor did give her a few ideas for investment projects, but they were not feasible in the short term. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Lily. Did you finish cooking, Victor? Margaret asked immediately. Not yet, Lily replied. Do me a favor, can you get the company's private plane to be at my disposal? Didn't Victor prepare one for you and your sisters? It won't work, I need a second one to lose a rat who is tailing me. I didn't expect their surveillance to be this thorough. Oh, fine, I will tell the men there to be expecting you, Margaret said. Such things were usually handled by Arya, but that girl didn't really understand what the word subtle meant and tended to ask too many unnecessary questions. Margaret, on the other hand, asked nothing. Every girl had the right to keep some secrets. Thanks, Lily said. By the way, I met Lulu, you owe me one, she added, then hung up immediately. Thanks, I guess. Wait, didn't she just ask me for a favor? Whatever, Margaret said to herself as she sent a message to Arya's secretary to prepare the plane, then threw her phone on her desk and looked at the ceiling. So the idiots were back, and they were already making trouble. She really didn't like her aunt's family. But those guys did take care of her when she was in need, so she was taking care of them in her own way. Educating them and taking some revenge in the process. It seemed like sending them to work the mines for a month was not enough to fix their crooked ways. Maybe she should try sending them on a whaling boat instead. Lulu always complained that she was not tan enough. Wait, since Lulu was already in town, Abe would surely be here too. Maybe she would be able to put those two to good use after all. Cracking the popsicle in her mouth, Margaret quickly began to plan her next move. Ellipsis. Elder Theodore, Young Master Mike, Young Master Victor, this way please. As soon as the helicopter landed on the island's port, the family of 3 was invited into an electrical train cart that quickly drove on a golden engraved track toward the entrance of the ruins that were located in the middle of the island. That area was technically within the ruins' boundaries, so engines like the ones used in helicopters didn't work. Even the electrical engines used by the carts that were meant to transport people and materials barely worked. It took them 10 minutes to reach the entrance, which was guarded by a grand 30-foot-long heavy metal gate that can only be operated manually by a group of muscular men. Welcome. A mean-looking man with a bald head and a hooked nose welcomed the group of 3 as soon as they descended from the cart. Manager Tin, it's been a while, Theodore said with a bright smile. It has been a while indeed, Master Theodore. This way please. Tin, who shot Mike and Victor an inspecting glance, quickly began guiding them toward the gate that was open at the moment. Victor just followed quietly as he looked around. This entire island became a giant hole that was swallowed by the ocean the last time he was here. And the family records concerning this place were all ransacked with it, so Victor had no idea what to expect here. Behind the gates, the 3 were welcomed by a huge stone-floored corridor that headed deep into the mountain with a slit inclination downward. It was dimly lit by flickering electrical lights in its stone walls. Those lights seemed to dim as they walked further inside, a proof of the gradual change of world rules. On the ground, more than one metal track was laid above the stone. They should be used to transport ore from the mines inside, but at the moment they were empty. Looking at the small debris left on the ground, Victor casually used his appraisal skill. He wanted to know for real what the materials they extracted from this mine were, as the family documents were not always reliable. As the materials here are mostly otherworldly, his X-ranked appraisal skills should work on them. It is the first time he tried using it like this. A rock, black obsidian, C89%. Black iron, E6%. Dark quartz, F5%. Black gold, A1%. Sacred iron, SSS 0.0001%. Victor gasped, then began to cough. Young master, the area here is a little dirty because they transport the ores here, so be careful not to cause a lot of dust while walking, Manager Tin advised. Victor just ignored him. His mind was just racing too fast to comprehend things. No wonder that shit bastard Light Lord took this entire mine. It had fucking sacred iron, a material so precious that wars would be fought over small chunks of it. This thing was the exact opposite of hell iron. It not only restricted the use of mana and skills, but it even absorbed their energy, weakening all skills effects. When it was first discovered, it was used as both shields and shackles for players. They even built an entire prison out of it. It was only later, when it was purified enough, that they found out it was possible to create a mana semiconductor by combining it with hell iron. This was just before Victor returned in time though, so he was not sure. Damn it, the family must have known something. That's why they were using mortals to mine this place. If a player were to inhale the dust created here for a long time, their skills would deteriorate. The question was whether the family had a way to extract and purify this material. Probably not. They don't even know what was causing this effect, as sacred iron is notoriously hard to refine without a proper technology. If Victor's guess was correct, they were either using the ores as building materials or extracting just the metals in the ore and using it to create shields. Those will have a tiny amount of the material, so they will offer some magic resistance. Did something happen here? Theodore asked. Why are there no workers around? He added as he looked around. It was rare to see this place empty like this. There was an accident in the mines, so we had to stop the mining operation temporarily. I am sorry, but I don't have the liberty to discuss it now. I believe the Supreme Elders inside will inform you. Tin quickly said, making Theodore's faces change. He knew something. An accident. Did anything like this happen before? Victor wondered. He had no recollection, and Lily would surely have told him if there was anything of importance. The family documents did say something about an old incident though, but it didn't go into much detail. I see, Theodore nodded with a grave face. I hope you are taking care of Luke, Theodore whispered as they walked, making Victor raise one eyebrow. It seemed like Theodore had arranged for someone to take care of his son, who was ordered to work the mines as a punishment. Don't worry, Elder. Although he had some tough bones, after a few rounds of education, he learned his place. I made sure to take care of him. Tin said with a knowing smirk, making Theodore's smile disappear as he began to glare at Tin. When he told Tin to take care of Luke, he meant to do it literally, not figuratively. Manager Tin, I think you didn't really understand what I told you last time. I meant that you should really take care of Luke's safety, he is my son after all, Theodore, who managed to hold his anger, said finally as they walked a little further in. Theodore had no real power over Manager Tin, who although technically just a servant, belonged to the Hall of Secrets and had some autonomy in the family. Oh, Manager Tin paused. Ah, he said as he turned and bowed to Theodore. I am sorry, Master, I misunderstood you, this slave should die, he began to apologize repeatedly. It is my fault for not making things clear. Let's keep going now, we are already late. Theodore, who didn't want to make a scene, said. It was not really good for his image if it was known that he told someone to take special care of Luke. The family's judgment should be carried impartially. Yes, Elder Tin, who seemed nervous, said as he stood up and turned to continue walking. Strangely enough, he didn't seem sorry, but only Victor could notice that in the darkness. This guy was not an idiot, but a snake. Victor really hated snakes. Name, Tin. Abnormal status, Slave, F. STR 31. Int 30. Luck 4. Charm 2. Fate. Fate's power. E. Defined fate. None. How is Luke now? Theodore asked as they walked. The corridors became really dim at the moment. Ah, Tin hesitated. He is fine, he broke some rules and we had to, lightly punish, him a few times, but he seemed to have figured out his place lately, so I think he would be able to continue serving his sentence with ease, Tin said nervously, meaning that he will make sure to help Luke from now on. Good, Theodore said. He didn't intend to leave Luke here for long, as he would make sure to include him in the first batch of Awakeners who would be using the mirror once it was introduced. Soon the dim tunnels all of a sudden turned bright. They seemed to have finally entered the effective range of the ruin. Here the tunnels were lit by magical stones that used the mana in the air to work. The walls here didn't contain any sacred iron, confirming Victor's guess that the family must have extracted all the metals from the rocks that they mined here and then recycled to reinforce the tunnels. In fact, this place was no longer looking like a tunnel, but it was more like a giant underground fortress with gates and sentries everywhere. This is as far as I can go with you, Elder. Please make sure to wear your token on your chest at all times, Tin finally said as they reached a gilded gate protected by 2 burly guards. The words, Elder's Meeting Room 3 inches were engraved in the obsidian that surrounded it. Theodore nodded to Elder Tin, took his token and placed it on his chest, then walked in with his 2 sons. It was a grand hall that had a dome ceiling all built from the same black obsidian bricks that shimmered under the magical lights. Inside there were a few tables with refreshments, and around those many of the family elders and elite disciples were standing and waiting while having little conversations. It looked like some sort of social gathering. There were 23 young men with elite disciple badges on their chests, 19 elders, and 4 of the 7 supreme elders, including some who had no business here like Supreme Elder Frank, who controlled the family's external affairs, and Supreme Elder Bruce, who controlled the treasury. They must be here to root for their offspring. Victor didn't remember many of those people, but looking at them he could make out some familiar faces. Theodore, come on in, someone said. It was Elder Alfred who was the first to notice the newcomers. He made everyone turn to look at the door with vastly different looks on their faces. Supreme Elder Alfred, nice to meet you here, Theodore said politely, wondering why Alfred was so friendly. He quickly forgot that thought as many family members hurried to greet him and Mike with smiles, while some only nodded from afar. As for Victor, other than his loyal dog, Alfred, who gave him a secret nod, everyone else totally ignored him. As far as the family was concerned, he was just bait created by Anne to fool the other families and maybe to enhance Mike's position in the coming inheritance battle. In fact, he was not completely ignored. Many of the female heirs shot him a hateful glare before they looked away. They all heard the rumors. Victor sighed. Maybe he shouldn't have disguised his charm. If he were to really reveal what he really looked like now, those girls would wet themselves on the spot. He already tried it at the Moon Dungeon. It was super effective. Suddenly, Victor felt someone inspecting him. Looking up, he spotted his great cousin Bill, who was surrounded by some other elite heirs. He was carefully inspecting Victor as if he was expecting him to be suffering from something. Deciding not to provoke this idiot, Victor looked away. Victor, someone suddenly said and hurried toward the family of 3. It was none other than Zoe. Cousin, it has been a while, Victor said, making her glare at him hateful, and then turned to Great Theodore. She was still feeling angry after what happened in the Moon Dungeon where he made her help him scam those poor girls. Uncle, she bowed to Theodore. Cousin, she greeted Mike. They got to know each other during the wedding. Zoe, I hope you have been well. Theodore smiled as he checked the girl. He felt as if she was just like a daughter to him. Yes, it is all thanks to Uncle's care, she said. She had been staying in Vane City after all, and as someone who didn't have elder support in the family, Theodore had been taking care of her. Is Alice here? Theodore asked, looking around. Yes, she seems to have been arguing with some other elite heir a while ago, and she was taken by some elder to be scolded, she said, nervously pointing in one direction toward one of the smaller doors that seemed to lead to other side rooms. Who dares to scold my daughter? Theodore howled, then hurried to make some trouble. If he didn't kick some idiots' asses every once in a while, people would forget to respect him. Mike, who felt he could calm his father down, quickly followed. Victor ignored them and hurried to find the refreshments table to the side, where he began to help himself with some expensive delicacies as he waited. Zoe, who didn't know anyone here and seemed to have nowhere to go, went with him. Why don't you go make friends with some other elite heirs? Victor asked her as he fished some salmon sandwiches from the side. Those were made from really expensive stuff. They are too snobbish and proud for my taste. Zoe spat as she grabbed the sandwich Victor gave her and bit into it. She was beginning to wonder if she could really fit in this place. Unlike Victor and his siblings, most of the others were too proud and doubtful when they talked to her. It was as if she was some servant or something like that. The girl had no idea that those in the family didn't like her because she was from a distant line, and they believed she didn't really share their pure bloodline. And getting to know her held no benefits for anyone, as she had no backer in the family. Her Uncle Falcon, despite his reputation, was only a butler after all. Well, the family is just getting too polarized lately, so you just have to take it easy and treat them as if. Victor began to speak when someone interrupted him. You are Victor. Victor turned and looked up. It was a very tall and muscular young man with purple hair and a square face. No, Victor directly refuted him. This guy must have been coerced here to come to challenge him under the pretense of defending the elite heir's honor. Oh, sorry, the young man said. His name was Bruno and his class was a Titan avatar. Among the elite disciples, he was the one with the greatest raw physical power and lowest intelligence. The only reason a musclehead like this guy could become an elite is because he was simply too strong. For the coming tournament, he was the perfect contestant. A perfect tank. Victor never met this guy in his previous life, but he heard about him. He also knew that he died in the tournament. It was a big deal back then because this confident idiot bet something big with the opponent and ended up making the family pay. Name: Bruno von Weiss. Level: 42. Class: Titan Avatar, S. Authority: 6. Strength: 358. Agility: 100. Intelligence: 20. Luck: 25. Charm: 24. Order: 95. Skills: Temporary Immortality, SSS. Fire Resistance, S. Poison Resistance, S. Damage Resistance, S. Shock Resistance, S. Stun Resistance, AAA. Crush, AAA. Rocking Shout, AAA. Boil Blood, A. Fist Arts, A. Endurance, A. Instant Death Resistance, B. Dagger Arts, D. Sword Arts, E. Evade, F. Spear Arts, F. Cooking, F. Shadow Hiding, F. Bloodline, Elder Dragon, 61% UNAWAKENED. Equipment: Defense Talisman, S. Death Copper Knuckles, A. Storage Ring, B. Fate, Fate's Power, C. Defined Fate. Get killed by Solara von Astrum. Destiny list less than 10 order points to unveil greater than. Victor sighed. No matter how strong one is, there is always a way to kill him. He reminded himself to be careful. As Victor appraised Bruno, the latter, who came here to make trouble, began to look around searching for Victor, then after failing, turned to behind him with a questioning look. He was looking at none other than Bill, who pushed him here. The latter, who heard Victor's answer and wanted to kick Bruno's ass but didn't dare to make trouble, could only turn away as if he didn't notice anything. Bill, this one is not Victor. Bruno yelled, making Bill almost curse at him, then turn and slowly head toward his two cousins. Many of the heirs and elders who were not on his team began to look at him with mocking smiles, waiting to see him make a joke out of himself, so he had to act. Cousin Victor, you mustn't really joke with Cousin Bruno, he is a very, sensible and righteous man. He said casually as he kept his composture. Ah, are you joking with me? Bruno, who got angry all of a sudden, asked. He didn't like it when the others made jokes about him. He is the one calling you sensible and righteous, not me. Victor quickly said, pointing at Bill. What? How dare you? Bruno turned to face Bill. This guy was as gullible as it was rumored. Before Bill could say anything, one of the side rooms, doors opened and a distinct sound of high heels on the stone floor sounded in the room, making everyone turn to look, including Bruno, who shrieked immediately as if he saw the scariest thing in the world. The newcomer was none other than Grandma Anne, accompanied by the patriarch Marcos, who followed her as a puppy. Behind them, Theodore, Alice, who seemed angry, and an elder who seemed to have just had his ass handed to him, hurried after. We greet the patriarch. Everyone bowed. They were in fact bowing for Anne, but officially it was for the patriarch.